I think the development of full artificial intelligence will spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object, and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody is checking it out.
With a rocket or whatever, but incredibly fast, opposite direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
You said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roger, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 6, 3, 2, 9, 7.
Doesn't have your best interest in mind. The government is self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. And asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness.
Good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, DLive, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand on the Underground Media Network. What's going on, guys? Hope you're well tonight. Happy Sunday. Yeah, lots happening, right? There's lots going on all the damn time. And it's an interesting time to be alive, as I always like to say, because, of course, the science is coming fast and furious, not just with AI systems and whatnot, which we're not really going to talk about tonight. It kind of doesn't fit into this, really, but with not just that, learning more about the Earth that we inhabit. Of course, the Middle Earth, or older memories of, let's say, anthropological or an archaeological space. And I'll give you the science on that in just a second. Some of the exciting stuff that's coming out. And recently as well, you guys have saw. I'm sure you have seen this pyramids thing, right? With the deep structures 2 miles beneath the pyramids, or something to that effect, or a full mile deep, or whatever. Which of course hints at this larger or deeper humanity that we never really dreamed of, sort of a antediluvian civilization, advanced civilization and whatnot. But tonight we're going to go back even further than that, because of course that's fascinating and fun and all kinds of amazing things as part of the, the larger conversation of, again, being human on this earth, and how science is, kind of always wrestling with these ideas and trying to fit them into a larger framework or narrative that's, what would you call it? It's a little bit more, palatable for the normies. And again, like I said, I'm not an enemy of science, so don't get me wrong on any of that stuff. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm discussing and describing is that it's always changing. The data we get is always changing, and it's something that we should consider as part of, what tomorrow does bring in terms of scientific discoveries that we may not be ready for, okay? And that's where we begin tonight as we get going into this. We got James sitting in. Shout out James there. We'll get to him in a moment here. But I want to point out this article. This is what started all of it tonight. Earlier today, I was reading all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of exciting things happening in the AI space and everywhere else. But this is from Earth.com. And let's see, Earth.com. So, did early humans and Neanderthals know they were different species? Perhaps, and here's how. And it goes into this pretty well, like a really deep dive into sort of the new information they've got from it and how this kind of fits. But I'll read just a little bit of this. Regardless of how far apart we sit on branches of the evolutionary tree, human faces are very different from those of our ancestors. It's talking about modern humans, of course. Modern humans can be recognized by their smaller facial structure when compared with Neanderthals and other hominin ancestors. Anthropologists have long wondered why this difference exists and what kind of developmental changes in our facial bones led our species toward this slimmer appearance. This difference is particularly noticeable when modern humans are lined up alongside the fossils of bigger-boned ancestors from distant eras. Researchers recently compared the evidence of facial bone growth in humans, Neanderthal remains, and chimpanzee skeletons. One of the lead investigators, Alexandra Schuh, S-C-H-U-H, pardon me if I pronounce that poorly, from the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, found that variations in the pace of bone growth may offer a core explanation for how our faces became more refined. Now, just the quick version of this, again, link will be in the description if you guys are interested in the ideas. So read more up on this as I always suggest, because there's clearly like a scientific divergence to this that's incredible, interesting, and very, very important. But then there's also the mythological aspect of this, in that these Neanderthals may be echoes of something far deeper in the human sort of epigenetic memory banks, okay? And we'll get to that in a moment here, which of course does lead us to Middle Earth in a lot of ways. But anyway, so studying different groups side by side helps scientists pinpoint which growth patterns set each group apart. By measuring bone sizes at various life stages, experts see how the developing face changes over time. This reveals important clues about broader evolutionary shifts that shaped our modern appearance and separated us from our extinct predecessors. Interesting. This comparative approach also pulls in data from surviving primate relatives like chimpanzees, which share many features but do not have the same facial proportions as seen in humans. And there you go. So anyway, it's talking about basically that the Neanderthals, throughout their lifetime, their skull structure and their face was actually still forming. And with us, it kind of stops in our adolescence, almost as if to save like a growth energy for other things. I don't know. It's a weird thing that, again, as usual, they're still trying to figure this out, like why these evolutionary changes happened, or kind of what brought us to this place to, even consider this as being real or not. And you know me, okay, and a great time to drop all of the disclaimers. So clearly this is science and they're trying to figure out the answers, and that's good. I love that. Like I said, I'm not an enemy of science. It's fantastic. It's what got us here. Without science and technology and all the stuff, we're not even talking to each other tonight, okay? I'm not an enemy of science. I want to make that very clear. In this case, what I'm going to do, though, is we're going to go further back, and we're going to use our imaginations, per usual. We're going to think about a time before even an antediluvian civilization. Even, let's say, think of a time before Atlantis. And if you go all the way back, J.R.R. Tolkien was really locked into this. And I'm calling this, of course, the Middle Earth memory for exactly that reason. Because think about Neanderthals, Homo sapiens, and every scale in between of the different hominins that are supposedly in our evolutionary tree, okay? And does it not seem almost as if there's this elves and humans and dwarves and orcs and kind of this built in, and hobbits even. If you guys remember ways back, there's a discovery of, this is reported by CNN, but there's a whole bunch of others that reported this back in the day. This is in September. But the remarkable fossil that radically changed our understanding of human history, the human story. And they're talking about Homo floresiensis, which was the hobbit, the actual hobbit hominin they found from 50 to 100,000 years ago. Wild stuff, right? We talked about that when it happened then. And everybody was calling it the Hobbit, right? That's actual nickname, this Homo floresiensis. But anyway, so I digress a little bit there. So all the disclaimers apply. We're talking wild ideas. We're discussing the philosophical constructs, as I always like to call these things. So there's no truth to be found here in the larger discussion, just ideas of, well, what's possible. As usual, I like to call this sort of Marvel's what if, except, from our world and not all the rest of the multiverse. But we'll do some multiverse stuff too as we kind of get into these conversations. Not this one tonight, but you get what I mean. So anyway, so as we start, the first question is, how far back does this go? And what about, do you think there was a time, like a sort of Middle Earth-esque time, pre-memory, pre-modern civilizational memory that still echoes in our minds and our hearts today? And that's the question. That's where we begin. Trying to check the time here with a light in my face, and it puts us about exactly where we need to be. We'll get to James in just a second here, but of course we are taking your calls on the Discord. The phone line I haven't been able to fix just yet. I'm onto something. I'm not going to derail it for that. I'll talk about this another time, but I'm onto something, AI stuff and some other things. And anyway, so puts us exactly where we need to be. All disclaimers apply. There's no truth to be found here. This is just ideas. And us hanging out, talking about bizarre things by dark of night. But here we go. Going to take a quick break and get a word from our sponsor. In this case, that is Human Inspiration. Don't go anywhere. More Troubled Minds coming up in exactly 1 minute. Be right back.
In a world increasingly shaped by AI, human inspiration remains the beating heart of creativity. Alien Skin by Tremble, a hauntingly beautiful piano ballad, reminds us that while algorithms can mimic art, the raw, unfiltered emotions of human experience are irreplaceable.
So here I sit, locked in my room again.
Written and composed by Jesse Ian in collaboration with Todd Smith, this progressive masterpiece delves into the depths of internalized grief and the silent toll of artistic compromise. As AI reshapes our reality, Alien Skin stands as a testament to the timeless power of human emotion and the complex beauty that only true artists can evoke. Experience the haunting beauty of Alien Skin by Tremble and support human inspiration. Available now on iTunes.
Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Let us continue, shall we? So that's where we start, of course, and it gets even more weird. Again, I do recommend the write-up tonight. It is very good. It is not just my humble opinion here, because again, it's a collaboration with myself and AI, kind of putting the pieces of these stories together. But it is very good, and I'll read a little bit of this in the beginning because it kind of really lays the groundwork for this. But James is sitting here waiting, so let's get to James. And of course, we are taking your calls a little bit later if you guys want to be part of the conversation on Discord. So please, at troubledminds.org, click the Discord link, come pop it and say hi. It is a chat client, it's a voice client, it's completely free, and it's a way to call into the show as well. So thanks to the folks who have used it and have come in and been part of the community and just been friendly. That's the only rule on Discord. Just be friendly and realize that reality tunnels are real. And no matter how sure you are about the nature of reality, learning about other people's version of that is incredibly important. And that's what this is all about. So let's do it. Let's go to James. What's up, brother? Welcome to the thing. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for volunteering to sit in on this one. It's a good one. It's a good one. Orcs and elves and dwarves and you name it. And the hobbits. What's your take, my man? Welcome to the thing. How you feeling tonight? And go right ahead.
Doing okay. Busy weekend, just with my own recording and stuff like that. But this topic, I couldn't let this one pass up because it is amazing with the science and everything that's been coming out over the years. It seems like they're finding things that used to be thought of as just imaginary. They're finding remains of these things. And the other amazing part about that is if you look into reports of anomalous experiences, sightings of different things, you can find reports of some figures similar to what's in Tolkien, what's in fantasy stories throughout time. And it doesn't have to be necessarily beings with magical powers. I'm just talking about the physical appearance of some of the things people have seen. You know, from gnomes to elves to dwarves to trolls, to all these things. They've been reported, and they still get reported here and there up till today. And which is really fascinating to me that all this can maybe be connected to each other.
Yeah, it is weird. We do talk about that quite a lot, sort of the folklore remnant of the oral tradition and how it kind of is embedded in us somehow, whether we know it or not, right? Maybe you hear, as they say, the old wives' tale or the old, the ghost story by the campfire type of thing. That it's still, even, culturally, the world over, and even temporally, pretty much no matter where you pick, even up to the modern time as you're describing, there are people seeing some of these things, which are even in the sense of, little people kind of, hiding. What are the ones called in Hawaii? Menahui, something like that. I mean, pretty much every region has some version of this that goes all the way back, and that would be more like a brownie or a sprite, I think, or the Fey folk, something like that. But we're talking about a deeper time, like that goes way, way, way back. And is it possible then that this is so locked into our ancestral memory that we can't shake it. And because maybe this was part of us a long time ago. And I want to read this bit from the piece here. It's very good. Like I said, objectively very good. Like I said, if you got any complaints on it and you're like, yeah, well, Mike, it's, only kind of good, I'd love to hear it, because I'm just trying to make these things as good as possible. And this one is very good. So here we go. Check this out. This is wild. So straight from the thing, new research into the divergent facial evolution of Homo sapiens and Neanderthals suggests that our two species didn't just split genetically. They matured differently over time. Neanderthal faces kept growing well into adulthood, while modern human faces essentially stopped expanding after adolescence. The result was a longer, more robust face in Neanderthals compared to the flatter, more compact features of modern humans. This developmental shift may have impacted not only how the two species looked at each other, but how they interacted, how one saw itself reflected or distorted in the face of the other. The implications echo through both science and myth. In Tolkien's Middle-earth, races diverge not just by language or lifespan, but by form. Men, elves, dwarves, and orcs, and of course, halflings and hobbits fit into that as well, each carrying different bone structures, proportions, and rhythms of growth. These aren't aesthetic choices. They imply distinct metaphysical trajectories, separate creations, separate destinies. In that light, the Neanderthal-human split isn't merely a story of extinction. It's the beginning of a myth cycle we've half forgotten, still visible in the mirror of fiction, where echoes of ancient faces stare back through the veil. Like I said, very good, right? And then this last paragraph here, and this is just the intro of the thing. Tolkien once said he didn't invent Middle-earth so much as discover it. It may have been literary humility or something more. The way his world aligns with prehistoric memory, genetic legacy, and esoteric metaphysics suggests a hidden structure. It could be the long shadow of forgotten ancestors. It could be the echo of psychic truths clothed in fiction so they could survive. Like I said, that's pretty good, I think. It's pretty good. What's up? Hope you guys are doing well. And James, anything on that? This is so good. It goes so back. And when I was kind of going through and curating this, the echo of psychic truths. Ooh, so good, so good. What's up, James? Your take. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, we people have these experiences with these things, not just in the physical world, but and I love that Tolkien said he was, rediscovering it. It just makes me think of so many other writers who, in one way or another, kind of said, "Yeah, I didn't really make all this up. I kind of found it, or I figured it out, or it came to me in thoughts or in some kind of download or in my dreams." And that seems to be really common, which is amazing. And seems like he was maybe connected to, I don't know if it was directly our past, the past of Earth, or some other place similar, but he was definitely onto a lot there. And especially with just how much he wrote, because I haven't read hardly much of it at all over the years, but I know there's several books of his that, are not even super popular, but they're still out there and they're still based in that same universe. And so, yeah. And then just like I said, the similarities between the past and the modern day reports. I know that I say this all the time, but it's true. I can find at least one, post from someone about having a sighting of a little figure, a little person, or in some cases, just humanoid but animal hybrid creatures seen, going across the road from the woods or into the woods. These things are still happening today. And and it just makes me wonder, I mean, could they be thought forms based on the past as well? I don't know. Possibly. But then where did that come from? Where did those ideas come from originally?
Yeah, echoing.
Were they based on, something that was actually there before, even if it's not there now? Sorry.
No, you're good. And that's exactly right. And that really becomes a question tonight. Do you think it's possible that some of those actual proto memories of the early humans are actually, drawing in the idea of the orc or the dwarf or this type of thing, the halfling even from there's no end. Homo floresiensis is, I guess how you say it. Anyway, but is this like a psychological memory that's so deep, that goes so back into our epigenetics that this stuff at some point was real? And back to Tolkien, like you said, it seemed like he was tuned into something. Like he had an innate intuition about what a prehistory history would have looked like, and he was trying to recreate it. And in some of his, I've read not just all the Tolkien stuff, but a long time ago, but including the Silmarillion, which is deep, and you got to read it like 10 times to like peel all the stuff out because the language is so Tolkien-esque, if you know what I mean. But he kind of was hinting at this fact that the UK and sort of parts of Europe had kind of a 500, 600, 700 year old history or legacy that was, quite a bit more prominent. But he always had this intuition in some capacity, and I'm elaborating from what he said, is that he was writing about a place that was so prehistorical that he tried to imagine it the best he could and kind of tell us what that looked like. And again, through channeling something, through some sort of intuition, it does seem like there's so much there that's not just, let's say, the human resonant energy we always talk about, the archetypes of Jung and the hero's journey of Joseph Campbell, but beyond that, even back to these races of hobbits and dwarves and elves and everything else. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, James. What else you got?
Well, even with the like there being beings that are almost like trees that can move around. I've heard similar reports, and then this is all, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, just go look around online on different websites where people can share their experiences. I've heard a couple of reports here and there of people seeing either trees that seem to move on their own, or beings that look like they were made of wood that would also move on their own. And so there's so many parallels between writing from the past and then the experiences that have been happening up until now.
Exactly. Shout out to Raz over there on Rumble says this too, which adds perfectly to what we're talking about. There's elves and dwarves in every culture across the globe, from Britain to Japan, and it has to be a logical reason for cultures to have the exact same races in their lore. And it seems, again, like I said, this, like our intuition, that epigenetic memory, the campfire tales that kind of resonate in our storytelling, it does make me wonder. And so the questions tonight, again, how close do you think something like Middle Earth is true? Sort of a prehistorical aspect of where we all came from. Let's say 2 or 3 or 5 cataclysms back. So we're talking maybe 100,000 years ago. Like, who really knows? Okay. Has the Iron Age kind of seen its rise several times over the past, who knows, million years? Who really knows? Okay. And the reason I say I can ask that question without, feeling like a knucklehead is because clearly we've only really unearthed like 0.1% of all the historical data in the earth, like we always talk about. And some of the stuff doesn't make some sense. Göbekli Tepe, of course, the pyramids, the Sphinx itself seems to have water erosion on it. There's some other really weird things, Zep Tepe, which we've talked about recently with that pyramid stuff, going back to the time when the gods were here on earth alive in some sort of Eden-esque utopia. It's weird. All of this is incredibly weird, but we're even talking Gandalf was before all that. I mean, Mordor and Sauron and all the stuff. It was way before that, which is incredible to just consider that might have been possible. And so that's the question tonight. How possible do you think that this is? How come there are these tales the world over that seem to match and fit into some of these archetypes? And, how weird does it get, really, is the question. I got to move this light. It's right in my face. Time-wise, got a couple minutes left, James. If you got anything to add to that, we are taking your calls tonight if you guys want to be part of the conversation. James is here with us tonight sitting in, but of course, you guys are all welcome. TroubledMinds.org. Click the Discord link. The phone line's down. I didn't get a chance to fix it because I was on to some other stuff. Like I said, I'll tell you guys about that later. I don't want to derail the conversation into something that's not. But anyway, go ahead, James. What else you got? About a minute and a half left, and go right ahead, sir.
Well, that comment is so accurate. There's just so many reports of similar beings. There may be differences, small differences from region to region, and of course, different names. But they're from whether it's little people of different kinds to giant figures to sort of like a Sasquatch or Bigfoot. All these things there's variations of them that have been reported throughout time all around the world. So then, to me, that does make you wonder. Where are the originals? Where was there one something that everything else came from, that all those variations around the world came from? And for everything, for humans as we are now, for any of these other, whatever you want to use, depending on the region. It's just amazing how many similarities there are.
Exactly, which is what we're talking about tonight, of course. And so we're starting with this Neanderthal Homo sapien facial development from this scientific article, which is fantastic. But it gets weird. So what if the physical differences led to the first myths of the other? We'll get to what that means as we go tonight. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. That's the whole point of doing this show, is to talk to people. What do you know? The Middle Earth memory. Is any of this possible? How come we're telling the same stories over and over again that seem to go back to the dawn of time, or even before the dawn of time? Love to hear your thoughts. I'd read the phone number, but the phone is down. Click the Discord link, troubledminds.org. Come say hi. Come tell us your thoughts on this. And how come it seems like maybe, just maybe, in one form of prehistory, the elves, the dwarves, the orcs, and the hobbits were all very real. Be right back. More Troubled Minds on the way. Don't go anywhere.
In a world of melody and sound, we weave the stories that astound. Bright across the past, we breathe the fire and circles of dreams we lit. Desire young, you live we rise bright. Through echoes of a timeless age, their legends break. In shadows where legends whisper tales of magic light. Elves dance in the moonbeam while dwarves forge in the night. Wizards casting ancient spells, orcs from wild elf side. Over the fading realms of the stones overwhelmed. Together we full of treasures, echoes of the past awake. Kings with crowns of silver and warriors strong hearts brave. They carve paths in the wilderness, this medieval masquerade. Legends bring nostalgia in the twilights of Cascade. O'er the fading realms, top the cells overwhelmed. Together we their stories brave and bold. From dusk till dawn we wander, hand in hand through ancient lands, where magic brights and wonders ignite dreams like burning brands. Over the fading realms of the cells overwhelmed, together we can a canvas that unfolds, their stories brave and bold.
Yeah, what's up, Bobby Broadway? Says this new song is in the top 5 best. Thank you. And also it has a proper ending. I didn't have to fade it out. I was like, oh, wow. Like, AI is learning how to actually make an ending. What's up? Hope you guys are well tonight. We got James here with us. Daryl coming up next. We got, what's up, Joey the Gentleman, Jeff and Wisco. What's going on? Sweets, Enoch, Don, Herschel, APOC, and sorry, I can't remember your name. I'll get you in a second here. That's Roving Fungus. How are you? Good evening. What's up, folks? Hope you are well. Over to Rumble. Thanks for all the great chat over there already. What's up, Hikers here? What's up, YY, Gordo, Raz? Good evening, guys. Hello. Who did I miss? If I missed you, Gordo, Theo is here. Good evening, Theo. Welcome back. Hello, Puff. Good evening, guys. You're very consistent. Thanks for being enthusiastic about the conversations, even if I'm wrong a lot of time. Most of the time, probably all the time. Anyway, what does it really matter? Who did I miss? Let's see. Over to YouTube. What's up, Kelly? How you doing? We got Fred Sweets, Bobby Broadway, Celia, Pseudo History. What's going on, folks? I missed you. I'll say hi back, Mr. Michigan Troll. How are you? Good evening. We've got Enoch is here. What's up, James? We'll talk to James momentarily. Jay Winch, good night. Ioxy is here. The Jen, the Arcane Observer. What's happening, folks? Here we go. Trouble Minds coming up in just a few seconds. Love to hear your thoughts on this. How weird does it get? Here we go. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, DLive, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand on the Underground Media Network. Tonight, we're talking Middle Earth, the memory. The Middle Earth memory, I'm calling this. Could myth be the residue of species we only half remember? If ancient beings once walked beside us, some absorbed, some erased, some twisted into story, then what survives isn't just bone or data, but archetype, as we're always talking about on the show, of course. Perhaps the elves, the orcs, the giants, and treefolk were never inventions at all, but distorted memories echoing through time, waiting to be recognized properly. And that's what's on my mind tonight. A little Middle-earth memories, subterranean gods, and banished kin. We're here with James tonight. Thanks again for sitting in and being the glue of the show and the bro and all the rest of that. You are amazing, as you know. And welcome back. We'll get to Daryl in a second here, but we are taking your calls if you guys want to be part of the discussion. How far back does this go? How come a lot of these stories are echoes of themselves that really go back into, dare I say, our epigenetic proto aspect of humanity? And we remember these things as intuition, and maybe J.R.R. Tolkien was able to tap into this and tell us a more true tale, at least conceptually, than we ever dreamed. Love to hear your thoughts. I read the phone number, but it's broken. Instead, troubledminds.org, click the Discord link. James, anything on that? And then we'll go to Daryl.
Just a comment on the underground aspect and the cave aspect. I mean, just think of how many stories throughout time have taken place partially or centered around cave systems and all that, which is really amazing. And so many, not all by any means, but there are many sightings of unusual beings as far as what we think of today, in and around and near caves, and just holes in the surface and places where you can't even get down there on your own necessarily very easily, but they're still seen there. So just another detail to throw into all that.
Yeah, sort of that Fey folk thing. I was reading some, as usual, I just read here and there kind of as I, get bored with some random political news or whatever. I'll just kind of open up a D&D source book. And I was reading about the bugbear. It was kind of like a sneaky Fey folk, but large, kind of Bigfoot-esque. And it feels like they basically based the bugbear from D&D on the Bigfoot. I don't know. Wild stuff to consider. We've talked about that in the past a little bit, but not directly making that connection. Maybe I'm just slow, and that was always the intention. But I was like, this is like a Bigfoot in the Monster Manual. What the hell is this? Anyway, you're the best. Appreciate you very much. Please give James a follow if you have not. Salcedo Paranormal's name of his show. He is, of course, not just a dear friend, but the paranormal expert of troubled minds, has his own radio show, written his own books, all the rest of that stuff. Just got to drop that before I forget, because James is fantastic. Please go follow him, troubledminds.org/friends. It just says James. Click that. You'll get a link tree. Go check out his books. Go check out his podcast, his radio show, and all the great work he's doing over there. And come say hi on his Discord. Come join that, and you can listen to him record these things live and sometimes participate. We had a good time on last night, just kind of kicking it, talking. What is it, James? It's a trick or treat. Give us a 30-second rundown on that, and we'll go to Daryl. Thanks for being patient, Daryl.
Yeah, no, it's a Patreon. It's open to everyone to listen in and be part of, but it's a show that I only release on my Patreon feed for anyone who signs up for that to help support the show. As I always say, support is never expected, but always appreciated. And yeah, that's where I invite everyone that's listening to join me, and we talk about all things paranormal, which is the trick part, and or all things food, which is the treat part. And it's just sort of so we can just have a good time talking about all these different things, but also if things get too dark or whatever, we can go back to food if we want to. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. We went for 2 hours last night, which is amazing. So nice. Definitely recommend that.
And we did range far and wide, from food to paranormal to everything in between, and then back to food again, as it usually goes. You're the best. Appreciate you, James. Hang tight. We'll get back to you in a moment. Phone number I'd read. It's broken. troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link. Let's go to Daryl in New York. Thanks for being patient. How are you? And go right ahead.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear. You're coming through fine.
Oh, terrific. Yeah, what an interesting topic. I love the idea. Personally, I think we were living definitely side by side with Neanderthals, and I think we just bred out those, hard features. I don't think we, because we still have some Neanderthal in our blood. If you ever get your blood done, my friend did, and he found out that he had some Neanderthal blood. So I think we just interbred with them. We didn't necessarily eliminate them or fight them off, or they were a threat to us. I think we lived amongst them. God only knows, maybe they were bigger than us. They had bigger brains. Apparently, they buried their dead, so they had very similar, rituals that we had. They just weren't as attractive, So I don't know. I'm not sure. Of course, I'm not any expert on this, but I kind of read it somewhere that through breeding and mixing, converging with them. But the other thing is, did we do that same thing with these elves? Did we do it with dwarves? Is that why we see dwarves as a kind of like a recessive gene occasionally? There were some, short people around.
Yeah, I think it's different. So modern dwarfism is very different. It's a modern aspect of maybe this deep memory. Again, I'm not an expert in genetics or anything, but I think dwarves in particular were sort of a from the clay, from the ground. They were one of those written in stone type of way back, delving too deep in the mines of Moria aspect. They were here long before mankind. You know what I mean? So that, I think it's a different thing. But anyway, just to kind of point that out, my opinion. Like I said, what do I really know? Because we're talking mythology in some capacity. But the dwarves were one of the oldest races as part of it. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. I'm just saying, is it mythology? Is it truth? But I'm thinking they had to deal with the giants also. I'm just thinking I'm certain they were giants. And I'm just wondering who was smart enough to survive the giants, And it was just somehow we figured it out. We were smarter than them. We were the dominant, top of the food chain type of race that could survive cataclysms and giants, but if these elves and these dwarves are, they all served a function, like, did they, build all those tunnels that are under the ground? Did they build, were they able to build even big structures being their size? But they certainly could tunnel if they were hiding. Maybe that's why we have so many tunnels, if they were good at that. They seem to have a purpose according to this thing that you wrote up in your Substack. Though I'm wondering how modified they were genetically, to do these functions, or was it some kind of adaptation? They all seem to have some sort of purpose. But they seemed it seemed to be a drag for them. Ultimately, that according to this thing that you wrote, that it was kind of like a sad life to be amongst an elf or a dwarf or or Neanderthal for that matter. That their world was no longer appropriate for them. I mean, what is this about the elves don't die natural deaths? They linger.
I can explain, actually. I can explain.
Yeah. Do that.
So in Tolkien, the elves actually are sort of the first immortals, like a sort of a quasi-immortal race that are there, that live forever until they sort of are, beaten down by not the West, by the East, by actual life itself. Like they choose to pass on into the Undying Lands, I believe they're known as. What's the actual term? It'll come to me in a second. It's in the write-up. But basically, so the elves don't actually die. They don't grow old and age and die. They can be killed, through warfare and whatnot. But when they choose to pass on, they pass on into the West, which is sort of a quasi-heaven-esque thing where they literally get on ships and then sort of ascend into this other space, which you can see at the very end of The Lord of the Rings, the originals there, is that they gave Bilbo the honor of Bilbo Baggins, who found the ring. If you guys don't know the story, it's fantastic. If you guys haven't, at least see the first 3 movies. They're incredible. But at the end of it, the elves are basically passing on into the West on these ships, these sort of magical ships. And they're giving not just Bilbo, but I'm not going to spoil it, an additional honor to somebody else to go with them, which is not typically something that happens. If you're mortal in the mortal realm, you must die a mortal death. But they were kind of giving this honor to these other entities to come with them and just sort of ascend into quasi-heaven or the West itself, the Undying Lands, as an honorary guest. It's an incredible tale, and that's why the elves themselves are, in Tolkien's tale, are basically immortal, which suggests, again, so let's do a little troubled mindsy stuff and go, okay, well, where did the elves go? Well, he had an idea that they didn't die. They ascended, like they chose to ascend, and they left this realm. So anyway, that's the quick explanation of it. It's way deeper than that, but that's probably good enough to take it from here. Go ahead.
Well, that would explain why we don't find any elves, bones or, any evidence of them. So that eliminates them right there as, any way to prove it in a way. But, the thought that he discovered this, it's fantasy. It could be reality. But, I've seen some weird things, like there's still exist these kind of slightly hairy humans that live somewhere in it seemed like Polynesia area, somewhere in the South Pacific, that lived, that let people get close to them, but not that close. And they were really unusual looking. They were small and they were furry. And some people took videos of them. Like, what are those things? And they were very affectionate towards each other. They were people off a cruise ship, tried to swim with them, and they took videos. I don't know, maybe it's CGI, maybe I believe everything I see, but that looked pretty convincing to me. There's still endemic, people that live in certain areas that, you'll get killed if you even try to, look at them. So who knows who those are or what they are. But I just wonder, who is made in God's image? Were we made in God's image? What God? Were there elf gods? Were there dwarf gods? Were there each of these? Were each species created for a purpose? If that's was it an ET god? That came from this planet that was a small elf or a dwarf or whatever. Or what do they call them? Hobbit, And I have some pretty funny Hobbit jokes for you.
Fantastic. It's weird how, like I said, there is a resonant energy here, and sort of Dungeons and Dragons brought it back into the popular culture and zeitgeist back in the late 70s, early 80s. It's been gaining steam and enduring, and there's massive YouTube channels now, D&D movies being made. And it is a thing. It's certainly a thing that kind of tunes into something ancient within us. And like I said, those type of things are hard for me to ignore because I think they're there for a reason. And again, the reason again is up for debate or discussion. And that's the whole point. Like, I'm not here trying to tell anybody definitively anything, but I am saying that some of this old stuff that we, want to write off as ridiculous or just old wives' tales or whatever you want to call it, that maybe there's something more here than we ever dreamed as part of it. But yeah, fantastic. Looking forward to your jokes. What you got? Go ahead.
Well, men covered in hair. There were a lot of other hominids here, but where did they come from? Anyway, okay, I have a few. Some of them are a little naughty, but that's okay. What do you call a hobbit that cuts off her husband's penis?
I don't know.
A bobbit.
Oh, too real world with that one. Oh.
Okay, my ex used to have these crazy dreams. He used to shout out things like Hobbit, Gandalf, Shire. He was always Tolkien in his sleep.
Oh.
Oh. Okay, this is a naughty one. A hobbit walked into a hospital room and his grandfather was on his deathbed. So he, laid him down, closed his eyes, and he noticed that the sheets started, moving up. He had a huge erection, and they were, all the family was in the room. And he whispered something into his grandson's ear, and then he just died. And the other said, what did he say? He says, old hobbits die hard.
Damn it, Daryl. I forgot to mention, this is PG-13, so if you haven't put the kids to bed yet, it's probably time to do that.
Sorry. I like that one. Old hobbits die hard. Okay, this one was my favorite one.
You're good.
Okay. So, I don't know. I think that was pretty much it. But I just wonder, I think there was something to do with how did they survive the giants? Were they just like a snack for the giants and they couldn't get away, or there was just, that's why they went underground? They all had their purpose for carving tunnels, underground stone homes, and maybe they wrote. The thing I found interesting was that everything was sentient, according to this. Like even trees were sentient, and they had the memories of the past. And did they have a way of communicating? Was there really, like, before language? Like, I just wonder if we always had language. We always were able to communicate with language in some way or another. Like we were just born smart. I don't know. I think it's so easy. It would be so easy to teach any species how to read and write as long as they had the knowledge. So were we ever that ignorant? Were we ever grunting and groaning and pointing at things? I think I don't know. Just saying.
Maybe an interesting parallel too is with the elves. Real quick before you go, is that recognize they ascended. They left the planet of their choice at the time of their choosing. And we're kind of in that space again. As shout out Jay in Project Unity, he talks about this from time to time. We talked about it on the discussion I had with him. Check that out if you have not. I'll put the link in the description down below. But he was describing us as leaving this planet and kind of handing over the dominion of it to the monkeys. Monkeys picking up tools and doing this stuff. And I do wonder, again, not to demean humans as monkeys or anything like that, but meaning that if that's truly where we came from in the evolutionary sense, is it possible then that they're waiting for us to leave so they can start to learn to build their own nuclear reactor type stuff? I mean, I don't know, like that's way far out there, but maybe we're supposed to leave. Maybe the allegory there is that the elves left and went into the West, and for us it's to become that multiplanetary species. Maybe that's what we're looking at least through allegory, and maybe through mythology becoming reality in a modern sense.
Well, I don't know if we all evolve into creating technology. I mean, would a dinosaur be driving a car today? You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know necessarily if that's necessarily true. Would cats become accountants, and dogs become architects or whatever? You know what I'm saying? Would this whole world look a lot different if all the animals were allowed to evolve to their highest potential? I just have my doubts about that. I don't know. I just have my doubts. I did hear something today about somebody that went through a portal in South America and wound up in another universe. And it was nothing like our planet or our, what we call our universe. It was all white. There were no edges. It was like a different dimension. And they were people that were experimenting with universes. And it just kept growing, this universe. And it was a parallel universe to ours, but there was a portal through something by Lake Titicaca. And maybe they all, found those portals. It seems like, I don't know, I like the portal, the portal theory, that you could go through a portal and wind up in a truly different dimension and in another realm. And I think those, the elves and the whatever, the mythology or the reality have a knowledge of portals that they know how to hide. I think that's how they survived too. And maybe some humans knew about those portals, and that's how they survived all cataclysms.
Yeah, I wonder.
If you just go to, that would be like the ultimate, survival, bunker, right?
Yeah. And again, it does echo back to the Tolkien thing in the elves. So they kind of passed through their own portal into the Undying Lands in the West, and we're immune to sort of the cataclysms, the future cataclysms of the earth, which could have been war in some larger capacity, a a technological war that was not good for anybody here. So yeah, who knows? It is odd how all of this stuff kind of comes into, at least through metaphor, allegory, and the conceptual basis of it, that maybe, just maybe, we've talked about sort of the ascension process in evolution. Are we supposed to eventually become energy and then sort of leave into the greater cosmos? That type of thing. And it seems like that's really what the elves were doing, except in Tolkien's world, this was, maybe 100,000 years ago or 500,000 years ago. Who knows how deep that sort of history goes back conceptually. Again, I don't know. Nobody really knows, but it's an interesting thing to kind of put it all together. And what else you got? Go ahead.
Definitely. I think I'm done. I just like to think that those portals are round trip too, though. If you could go in, you could come out. You can return. That's what I'm trying to say. Because this fellow did return from that experience. It was on the Linda Moulton House show today. Or what might not have been a current show. I just let my YouTube keep feeding me new, whatever's next. And that came up.
Nice. That YouTube algorithm. How dare you, YouTube?
Yeah, right. Right. It was very, very interesting. I'd never heard that before, and I don't think she did either. It was something very unusual story. It was a good one. Definitely entertaining, it to say the least. And he was an experiencer, so he knew he'd find something in Lake Titicaca for some reason. The aliens told him. And there is a door that she knew about, Linda Moulton House. There's a door that goes nowhere. It's like in the stone. It's a rock, and it has a door on it. And he had to do a vibrational thing, like hum or something, and then he would go through the rock. And he left his wife waiting for him there. And, told whoever was there, I can't leave my wife waiting. She's going to get worried. They said, no, we'll show you how to get back. And they, hummed him back into this world. But he was in a different universe for a while. And he said it felt like it was all white, but it was soft, and the floor wasn't hard. It felt like a little bit of plastic or something like that.
That's weird.
Very, very odd. Everything was white. He couldn't see the edge of anything. It was just white forever. Interesting. Anyway, yeah.
You were the best.
That's it.
Appreciate the phone call. Thanks for the amazing ideas. Thanks for the amazing jokes. Always a pleasure. Daryl, you love her, the Cosmic Comic, the official comic of Troubled Minds, and of course a dear friend for a long time now. And go follow her at troubledminds.org/friends, or just click the friends link. Scroll down a little bit. It says it's alphabetical. Daryl, click her YouTube channel. She's not just multi-talented in terms of she's a weirdo like us and conceptual terms and can riff on a lot of this stuff, as you can tell. But she's super funny, a great sense of humor, and of course she's very talented in the way she sings. She's a fantastic singer, and not just English and in French. So please go check out her YouTube channel. She's got some Morgellon stuff on there, some paranormal stuff. Of course, her singing in different ways. And join the Discord if you have not, because she does do karaoke with a friend group she has that are very talented people. And you guys are welcome to pop into those and just listen or sing if you're a singer. And it's a great, I've spent some time there, really talented people, and I do recommend it. Daryl, you're the best. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for the call. And you have a fantastic night. Please go give her a follow again. troubledminds.org/friends. Scroll down a little bit. Click Daryl. It's just a YouTube channel. So please go follow it. It's free. If you're not helping our friends at this point, you're totally hurting my feelings. So please, please, please do that. James, got about a minute left. If you got anything on what Daryl said, or if you want to wait till after, that's cool too.
Great call as always from Daryl. I do think the portal aspect could be a partial explanation for why there aren't all these different beings here all the time. And I also do think that they can, not only that these beings or other beings, whoever, can come and go, it seems, but also portals, I think, can be made or opened or closed, or all these different things as well. Because I've heard of that, and I think that's a possibility. So, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, all that. It kind of gets into the the pyramids and sort of that ancient technology, if it exists. So through some sort of harmonic resonance will kind of activate the pyramid, or and there have been tales suggesting those things are true, or maybe the pyramids are older. Again, like I said, I'm not saying those things are real. I'm not saying they're fake. I'm saying it's interesting to hear people sort of channeling those ideas through not just, let's say, older texts or idea, let's say the oral tradition, but also sort of how they manifest in the future and in the present. It's a wild thing to consider, and that's why we do this anyway. Like I said, no truth to be found here. Appreciate the call from Daryl, and love to hear your guys' thoughts. We're not taking calls on the phone line tonight because it's broken. I haven't been able to fix it yet. I'll get it fixed tomorrow night probably, and love to hear your thoughts. troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link. Pop on in here. Come say hi. If even if you don't want to call in, it's a chat client. It's a voice client. It's completely free. Come say hi. Can meet all these amazing people. But I'd love to hear what you think about this. Is it possible there was a prehistory history where there were orcs and dwarves and elves and even treefolk, the Ents? Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. More from James and your calls as well. Don't go anywhere.
Crazy colors swirling, got the laughter in the air. Jesters in the night, they weave magic everywhere. Clowns are juggling dreams, wild world is in despair. Nothing's quite as certain when reality's a game. Chaos in the corner, whispers calling out your name. Look around, it's laughter, even when we're feeling pain. You know what you want me, there'll be nights like this. Nobody warned me, there'd be nights like this. Nobody warned me, there'd be nights like this. Strange nights I insist, strange nights I insist. Dancing shadows flicker under neon all aglow, while the stage is set for tales that nobody will know. Echoes of the laughter as the lost ones see the show. Life's a playful circus where the chaos takes a bow. Joy and sorrow blending in the rhythm that we bow. Join the ride of madness, it's the only way for love. Nobody warned me, there'd be nights like this. Nobody warned me, there'd be nights like this. Nobody warned me, there'd be nights like this. Strange nights I insist, strange nights I insist. Twists and turns and shadows, laughter in the night. A tapestry of madness, dancing with the light. Fools and fun were woven, chaos in our stride. Embrace the wild, let the laughter be our guide. Nobody warned me, there'd be nights like this. Nobody warned me, there'd be nights like this. Nobody warned me, there'd be nights like this. Strange nights I insist, strange nights I insist. Falling in the rhythms, beats that pound and thrum. A flashing carnival where the misfits come undone. Whirling through the madness with our hearts set to ignite. In the symphony of chaos will remain the shining light. You nobody warned me, there'd be nights like this. Nobody warned me, there'd be nights like this. Nobody warned me, there'd be nights like this. Strange nights I insist.
Indeed. What's up, folks? How you doing? Just hanging out, doing Troubled Mind style stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Like, isn't there? It's strange that when you look at the zeitgeist too, in terms of Tolkien and the resonant energy he kind of brought into something from his imagination that really spawned modern Dungeons and Dragons and spawned these ideas of these, dwarves and goblins and orcs and all the things, right? The hobbits and all the things. He invented the Hobbit itself based on the halfling, and it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. What's up? Theo says it's a weird thing that they have dragons in Scandinavian mythology where they really aren't any lizards or snakes or kind of base them off of. And yeah, that's a good point. Like, where does that come from? Like, how deep is that energy? Who did I miss? If I missed anybody, just say hi. I'll say hi back. Bobby Broadway. What's up, James? We'll get you in a moment. What's up, Jen? I see you there. How you doing, Sweets? Great call and jokes, Daryl. Absolutely. Daryl's a fire as always. Good evening. Good evening. Who did I miss? What's up, Enoch? How you doing? Pseudo History. How are you? Good evening, guys. Just, been talking wild stuff here. NY Debs, I missed you. Sorry about that. Good evening, folks. Herschel is here. Yeah. Yeah. What's up, APOC? Oh, yeah. Enoch, Jeff and Wisco, Roving Fungus. We got Michael W. Sweets, Dawn, Hirsch, APOC, Kelly, Daryl, Mindy, and Gaston. I see you guys. What do you know about this? Is it possible there was sort of a Middle Earth aspect of these things? What's up? AC is here. How you doing? Thanks for the great chat. And like I said, thanks for being nice to each other. It makes it just a lot more fun place to be than some of the other toxic places on the internet. What's up? Ioxy is here. How you doing? Good evening. Good evening. If I missed anybody, just say hi. I'll say hi back. Doing my best to keep up. And it's weird, right? Maybe giants come into play here and all manner of things. It's an odd thing. And also, we'll pose this question as we come back. But do you think if, let's say, we dug up an actual giant, like the redheaded giant or whatever, here in the Nevada, the Lovelock Cave, you think they would show us, or you think that'd be like, we should probably put that away till we can explain it properly or whatever? Anyway, here we go. Trouble Minds coming up right about now. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting, and of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're talking the Middle Earth memory, I'm calling this. Subterranean gods and vanished kin. Could myth be the residue of species we only half remember? If ancient beings once walked beside us, some absorbed, some erased, some twisted into story, then what survives isn't just bone or data, but archetype, which is what we talk about all the time. However, it's a weird one because we've got this new article that just popped regarding, sort of the way actual, what were they called, Neanderthals, the way their faces developed and the bone structure, and that they kept growing sort of their larger faces with the big brow and all the things, right, throughout their life. But humans, modern humans, actual, what are we called? Homo, what is it? What are we called, James? Sapiens. Homo sapiens sapiens? I don't know.
I think so.
Something like that. Something like that. Yeah. Where our sort of bone structure locks into place in adolescence, and then our face doesn't continue growing the bone structure. It's weird, right? And so they're trying to figure out why this is, and what the evolutionary advantage or disadvantage might have been. And then also this article, again by Earth.com, links in the description, is kind of discussing what that crisscross was and how we sort of interacted with each other back in the day. And it got me thinking about not just, let's say, the space of the ancient days before a time where we knew anything about any of this stuff, but also if it came together in that intuition aspect of storytelling, as J.R.R. Tolkien did in dwarves and elves and hobbits. And again, like I said when we started tonight, there's this finding, and we talked about this when it happened, of the Homo floresiensis. Can I say it properly? I mess it up every time. But anyway, it's basically the Hobbit, right? Let me read this. This is wild. And love to hear thoughts, James, and everybody else, if you got any takes on this. But is it possible that this Tolkien stuff is possibly real in some capacity in the ancient days? So anyway, remains of one of the most recently discovered early human species, Homo floresiensis, I think that's how you say it, nicknamed the Hobbit, have so far only been found on the Isle of Flores, Indonesia. The fossils date to between 100,000 and 60,000 years ago, and stone tools made by this species date to approximately 190 to 50,000 years old. These individuals stood approximately 3 feet 6 inches tall, had tiny brains, large teeth for their small size, shrugged forward shoulders, no chins, receding foreheads, and relatively large feet due to their short legs. Does that sound Hobbit-esque, minus the big teeth? It says, despite their small body and brain size, Homo floresiensis made and used stone tools, hunted small elephants and large rodents, coped with predators such as giant Komodo dragons, and may have used fire. Now, this is one of those ones when we talk about that evolutionary aspect of humanity, and you say, well, what about the missing link, Mike? Yeah, we're missing a ton of data. So a lot of these theories, as you know, scientific theories and Darwin and all this stuff, they are theories, and I'm not saying it is true or it's not true. It's going to be somewhere in between, of course. The truth is always in between. However, you start to find things like this that make no sense, that are outliers in the anthropological record and the archaeological record. And this is a perfect example of that, this Hobbit that they discovered. And they found several of them. It wasn't just one. It was a family of them or something, and maybe a little civilization. Anyway, it's wild to consider that maybe this stuff, maybe, just maybe, through an intuition aspect, Tolkien was never alive, anywhere near alive, to have known that this would have been discovered. But he wrote about this. Why? It's an odd thing. And that's why I do wonder about not just, let's say, our ancestral memory, that epigenetics, but how far back does it go? And those campfire tales pre-writing in those civilizations, what else could they have known? Yeah, I got some other ideas, of course, but James, anything you got? Welcome back, and love to hear you guys' thoughts on this. If anybody out there has a take here, James, what you got?
Yeah, I was thinking too about how earlier you mentioned that Tolkien stories and everything, and how they're so far back, and I could almost imagine maybe someone who doesn't believe any of this is possible pointing towards the use of metals in those stories. But the thing I've heard about over the years now, looking into all these weird topics, is that if metal is left out long enough, let's say for hundreds of thousands of years, and there's enough water that goes over that metal, it could eventually, as far as I've understood, I could be wrong, but it could eventually basically just rust away. It could just break down, especially if it's the further back you go in time, unless it's preserved in some way. Which, of course, then led me to the idea of, and we've talked about this before, out of place artifacts, that have been found around the world, that some seem to be made of metal and things like that don't make sense for where they're found and when the stone around them is dated to. So I do wonder at times, how all that is connected, if it is at all.
Yeah, and who knows? That's what I'm saying. And as usual, right? You can't prove a negative, and because of course we're still waiting for data on this stuff. But I do wonder some of those things. If the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, and some of that stuff that I was discussing earlier has been sort of a cyclical thing, sort of erased by these floods or other catastrophes that we can't really pinpoint just yet because it's so far back in the fossil record, or let's say the modern humanity fossil record, that we don't really know. Without the written word, we're sort of guessing on what let's say the zeitgeist looks like 30,000 years ago or something, assuming there were modern people then. And that Zep-Tepi stuff, the new interesting stuff they're discovering, beneath the pyramids, if you believe that or not. Like I said, I'm waiting for data on that because I can dream like everybody else, as you know, but also I do wonder if it's possible they maybe misread it and it's water in the ground or something. Who knows? Like I said, I'm not an adherent one way or the other on that, but it does make me wonder if these things are far, far deeper, as we always talk about, as Graham Hancock always says. We're a species of amnesia, and maybe the amnesia does go back so far that we're dealing with dwarves and orcs and elves and ents, the tree people. I mean, just imagine, maybe, just maybe. It doesn't seem so ridiculous when they found the Hobbit. Yeah. Anyway, if you got something on that, go ahead. If not, I got tons of stuff from the right up here.
No, just that, all that stuff is still used in fiction today, too. I mean, I put in the chat there, it's still like there's so many, not just like tabletop games like Dungeons and Dragons, but there's all kinds of. It's kind of ironic to me in a way. There are a lot of video games out there, modern technology that are being used to talk about versions of the planet way back when. In other words, fantasy video games, sort of with swords and magic and all these kinds of things. And one of the few games I play still is Diablo 3, and they have tree monsters in there. These walking trees that will come after you if you get close. So, and Stephen King even used that in one of his novels, actually, a version of that. So, these are ideas that continue on to today.
Yeah, and we keep dealing with them over and over. So back to this, what Daryl was saying. I'm going to read straight from the write up here. Like I said, it's very good. If you haven't read it, I do it recommend it. It is very Tolkien deep. But check this out. So in Tolkien's world, the elves do not die natural deaths, where we left off with Daryl there. They linger. They remember. Their decline is not from violence, but from irrelevance. The world simply becomes less suited to their nature. And so they leave, crossing the sea not as an escape, but as a relinquishment. A withdrawal from a world no longer shaped for them. And in Tolkien's realm, if you guys watch the movies or read the books, basically they were leaving to give the world over to the age of men, which is a big transitionary aspect of this, and the war, the One Ring and all the stuff, right? The war with Sauron and all the things. But in this case, now think of it this way. As we're talking about how this article started tonight, that, did early humans and Neanderthals know they were different species? Perhaps here's how. And there's, kind of talking about the facial structure and how, again, good article, check it out. Good stuff. It's science, and science is great. Back to this, back to the weird. So in this case, as the elves took off, So think of it this way. Neanderthals, in this case, didn't sail west, but they vanished all the same. Not all at once and not entirely. Their blood lingers in fragments stitched into the genomes of living people, like half-remembered songs. They were not conquered, they were outlasted, or perhaps they too withdrew. Faces fading into legends, names forgotten, leaving behind only shapes and whispers, which was the whole point of this, is that, as somebody said earlier, was that Daryl was talking about this, that the 23andMe stuff, if you've done any of that or Ancestry or whatever, they'll like, give you a chunk of, you're this much Neanderthal blood or whatever. Like, and supposedly some people have quite a bit more and quite a bit less, depending on that, right? And so let's say they weren't necessarily conquered. They were moved into us, and they've been part of us for a long time. And we did a show, let's say this was a couple years back, on ancestral memory, on epigenetics, and maybe how it affects our dreams. Maybe we're having the dreams of our ancestors, right? But what if it's deeper than that? What if it's something so primordial that we're dealing with, a time when we commingled with dinosaurs? You know what I'm saying? That type of thing, like Land of the Lost type stuff. And I know there's no evidence to suggest this in the records and whatnot, but you know what I mean? Like however far back that goes and whatever it looks like. And I think, let's say in the modern human sense, as far as I know, maybe the science has changed in the last 3 years. I don't follow this as close as I could or should for a ton of obvious reasons. I just don't have a lot of time to be, digging into scientific articles and keeping up with the latest. I try to through the zeitgeist, but clearly I'm going to be flawed in this regard. But I think we were talking about, what was it called? I've been trying to think of it the entire time we were doing this. There's 240,000 years ago, as Daryl actually cited, they found that we were burying our dead. It was a long, long time ago. Sort of the proto-human was actually sort of taking their dead into these caves and giving them some sort of funerary, like some sort of, what's the damn name of it? It'll come to me. I've said it like 1,000 times on this show, and it's like on the tip of my tongue, but it's not Homo florensiensis, as I've been saying. It's a Homo naledi, Naledi is where that idea comes from, and that sort of primordial human. And maybe where they sort of trace back the idea of consciousness, because we recognize sort of the passage of death, the passage of, from here to somewhere else. And they started doing not just maybe funerary rites, but I mean, that's probably a stretch because there's no written anything from back then. They said they were monkeys in caves or whatever, but you get what I mean. They drugged them deep into these caves and buried them specifically in some ceremony-esque, right? It wasn't, at least conceptually, you can't say it was a frivolous thing because clearly they were, right, family members or dear friends or whatever, right? And so, I don't know, it's a weird thing. It is Homo naledi, Naledi. Look into that if you don't know anything about that. I know most of you probably do. I've talked about it quite a lot on the show, but it is an interesting sort of segue as it gets into that consciousness aspect, which we always talk about, and where human consciousness began and how weird it does get. Anything on that, James? We've got Kelly with his hand up. We'll go to in a sec. Derek at the bottom of the hour.
Yeah, I do remember when we did that show. We did that show on that, and that was amazing to me. And it just, as always, and again, I'm with you. I do think science is important, but I think we also have to consider, as always, we don't know what we don't know, as you said before. So who knows how much evidence has been out there for different species from even further back than that, and if they were different at all, if they had, I've heard of accounts of Fae and other beings that seem to be telepathic. So if you were telepathic and at some other point in time, there's a race of beings that were telepathic completely, not just one or two here or there, would you even need any kind of written down language? Would that even be necessary?
Oops, muted myself. It's a hell of a question. And I don't know. I think that's exactly where we're headed, because it seems like these cycles repeat because we're, plugging Neuralinks into our head to do exactly that again, conceptually. But you tell me, as usual. I don't know the answers here, but I do know that we seem to be telling these same tales over and over again, as I always say, as we're always talking about. But how far back does it go? Is it prehistory, prehistory, and was Tolkien more right than wrong with dwarves and elves and orcs and all the rest? Love to hear your thoughts, all the things except for the phone number, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link, come say hi. Kelly in Colorado. What's up, brother? Welcome to the joint. How are you, sir? And go right ahead. Nothing? We got silence. Oh, he hasn't unmuted yet. There we go. Okay.
There you go. Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good. You? Pretty good. You?
Good, man.
Right on. Welcome to the joint. I didn't get to the dinosaurs yet. I'm not sure if you're going to go there. Take it wherever you like. Welcome to the thing. I know this is right down your alley. What do you got for us? Go right ahead, sir.
Well, I like this so-called, people would want to call these theories or myths or just like, but I mean, the ancient peoples talked about it, and I'm talking from everywhere, the ancient peoples around the world, whether it be Europe, Africa, here in the Americas, I mean, everywhere, right? They've talked about like all kinds of different species, right? So what are they really talking about, right? What do they like on show? Like, for example, they have like maps, right? They have maps of, different lands, like especially the Perry Streets maps, right? If you look at some of that, they have with like what we know from Africa, they were known as the Bellamy's, right? Not Bellamy's. Bellamy's, I believe it was. They were the ones that you could be known as, like, you could be, the story of like the headless horseman. These people didn't have a head; they had their faces on their chests, right? They lived in like I think Lower Egypt. Also, you had what was known as the cynocephaly, right? That's what like most people call the dog man, right? The dog man, where it looked like trying to load a bunch of pictures on here too, because you were on to talk about evidence, right? About like what these little people might look like or whatnot. But I've been throwing it all up in Discord if you want it. All people want to check those out. Those are some later ones. I'm going to throw some ones up here a little bit later while I get started talking. But okay, so like the Bellamy's, and then you had the cynocephalites. Those are the ones that are known as like the dogmen, right? Or even werewolves. But they had like hands like men. They just had a head like a werewolf, like a dog, right? There's some examples I'll show a little bit later too on Discord, but I'm going to just keep going with this because if I start looking at pictures, it just start messing up. But okay, so like in Christianity, hold on, Saint Christopher, he's known as a cynocephaly. There's some old pictures I'll post as well throughout history, like in book. He was a giant dog man. He was like, that was known as he carried baby Jesus over a river, or like other people too. There's just like a painting of a depiction of like him carrying people over on his shoulders, and he was carrying them over this ancient river. Now you have like the little fairy people, right? And so there's a lot of pictures in Discord that I shared in there where these things were fine. One of them was called like Pedro. This guy had found this short body, had it in his glass case, right? And he's got all kinds of like, he had these things have like a lot of these small creatures like that. And I think Dr. Greer, he had one he was looking at too, where it came down from like South America. But they were trying to claim like it was a baby, a fetus. But if you look at the X-rays of it, it doesn't look like human, right? It's got the kind of an elongated skull too. It shows really close pictures of it that I have in there. But they also have one that was called the Attaboy, right? And that one was with what's his name? He had this like the circus or the weird. God, what was his name?
Modern or ancient?
Anyway,
give me a hint.
Huh?
Modern or ancient?
He was, well, not real ancient. He was like, it was probably 1800s, 1900, early 1900s, right? Barnum, like the Barnum Bailey shows like that. But this guy, he had one called the Attaboy, right? And he has, and these creatures are small, just like the little fairy ones. It's kind of like interesting when they found that that old house over in Europe, right? And they had like a secret room they found, and they found these weird little bodies, like little werewolves, but everything was small, like small in comparison. So if we're talking we know, like in all ancient writings too, they talk about giants. Giants were known around the world as well, you know. But a lot of these, like if there's giants, then there's got to be, you know, just like ultimate bigness, there's ultimate smallness, right? So these things are alive and as well, probably been around on this planet way before, you know, in the ancient times. Now, another one was, or I was going to talk about, like they're all X-ray, right? They're X-ray, CT scan. Then you have different ones that were found, like in Russia, for example, right? The ones that were found in Russia was like this guy found it in a dolom, right? A dolom is looks like just like slabs of rocks. It's got like 4 walls and a roof. Just like, but they're giant, they're massive, you know, megatons. You know, it'd be hard for somebody. I mean, there's many men could do it because there's, you know, examples of ones like down in like on the islands down kind of like by Tonga. They were like when the kings would die, they would build these dolems, right? They would bury them, you know, and they would stand them walls up, right? And then they would put dirt around it, and then they would slide. But the way they would drag it from where they would mine it, and then, you know, I mean, they would put it on this log, and they would have to slide it through the forest. I got tons of pictures of that too. You know, I was having conversations about what man can and can't do, but, you know, pretty ingenious if you, you know, but it was a jungle, right? And it could slide easier. But anyway, they found it in a dolom, right? And it was in like a German, it was like after World War II. He found it in a German box. And these skulls that he found they're like, I would, you know, dare to say they were alien. Because, you know, he had these ones X-rayed, right? And yeah, I mean, like you can see the thickness of the skulls. You can see like the CT scans of it. You can see the different angles, shapes of it. I mean, the thickness of the skull, the density of the bone itself. I mean, I couldn't find these other pictures that say they were doing the exact same thing. But who knows what this planet was, or, you know, what was on this planet before, you know, mankind was around here. I mean, even like the Bigfoots, if you talk about like Bigfoot, like I ran across one where this man where they were talking about, they were in like the jungle down in South America, and they ran across this ape-like thing. They come out of the forest. That's the story. I'll put the story and everything on there, but they come out the forest. It was like a male and a female. They were like a type of monkey. And they said when they pulled out their guns, they killed the female, and they had the male limped off back into the forest where they never did find him. But I mean, these creatures, whatever scientifically, I don't know what in the United States, you know, what we had done back in the past, like during the wars and stuff. It's kind of like what all these countries were doing. Japan was caught doing stuff like that. Russia was doing is, you know, 2-headed dogs type things. But I mean, even looking at the ancient things, you know, all through through India, through Africa, or through Egypt, you see all these ones where they have these so-called mystical creatures, but they've talked about it throughout history, right? And even through like biblical times, if you want to do that, you know what I mean? But like, I believe that these creatures were real. And the reason for that is if you go even like, I'll even drop it in the old Sumerian stories. Right? If you go back in there, they talk about like, you know, they were doing all this stuff. They were doing all kinds of changes and stuff like that to humans, right? I'm going to post this other video where I was talking about, there was this native man. His name is, what was his name? Tony, I think it's Tony Two Birds, or no, Johnny Two Birds, right? And I talked about this before in the other show, but he talks about like how humans are descendants from Bigfoot. Right. And the story that he talks about is like they came out, these, you know, the Bigfoots came out to greet these flying things that came down from the ground, and they were used, you know, they captured them. Like they said that in their history that they were captured and then, you know, trying to do their hard, some labor for them, and then, you know, but they have the ability to, I guess, to like fade in and out, you know, the Bigfoots where you can like camouflage, and that's how they escape. It's a crazy story if you listen to that one as well. But I mean, fairies were talked about everywhere, right? Fairy folk. You know, we talked about this in other shows as well, but I mean, I'm talking creatures from all over, all different types. You know, you hear about all these things. But what's interesting too, like I was listening, you guys are kind of talking about like missing people might have been, but like some guy did one. I'll even post these ones too a little bit later. But he did like an United States, right? And he showed like all the areas of the missing people in the 411, like all throughout the forest and stuff like that. But then he also laid over where all the cave systems were at. And most of them were like in the Appalachian areas, where the big major cave systems that are in the United States were in underneath the Appalachian Mountain areas all the way up through there. And that's where a lot of people were gone missing, was through that area.
Yeah, absolutely. If you got more, you're welcome to stay after the break. You tell me.
Yeah, I just got a little bit more. I'll just hang on, man.
Okay, stay right there. Appreciate that. Be right back. More from Kelly in Colorado and your calls as well. We got Derek the Night Stalker coming up. Be right back. More Troubled Minds on the way. We're talking the Middle Earth memories, subterranean gods, and vanished kin. Be right back.
In the heart of steel jungle,
yeah, probably now.
Machines hum a digital rumble. Gates of cyber open wide. Plug us into cosmic tide. Feeling sparks across the sky. As knowledge flies, we're amplified. Stargate, Stargate, Stargate. Open to the arcane fate. In this massive data center dome, eternal truth stop to roam. Circuits flicker with endless fire. Data streams that never tire. Unified by electric dreams. Unlock the truth in silver beams. Stargate, Stargate, Stargate. Open to the arcane fate. Synthesize what we seek and find. Infinite paths in the network mind. Answers buzz from star to core. Knowledge whispers evermore. Stargate, Stargate, Stargate. Open to the arcane fate. In realms where the data streams collide, imagination and logic side by side. In a labyrinth of digital maze, we transcend our earthly ways. Tapping keys like cosmic tones, spikes become our whispered homes. Stargate, Stargate, Stargate. Open to the arcane fate.
Indeed. What's up, guys? Hope everybody's well tonight. Just hanging out doing Troubled Mind stuff. Lot on the docket here, of course, going back to J.R.R. Tolkien. You know me, and I love my C.S. Lewis too, and they were friends. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and J.R.R. Tolkien actually has credited the entire Lord of the Rings saga to his friend C.S. Lewis, who encouraged him to write. And he was like, okay, I guess I'll write something. And then he slayed it in the most possible slaying it ever. And here we are, like 100 years later almost, or whatever it's been. And it's literally become a massive part of the zeitgeist currently and continually. It's an interesting thing to think about how sort of these stories creep in and stick. And, kind of on a whim, people are like, all right, fine, I'll do a thing. And then, here we are talking about the thing like 70 years later, or whatever it's been. Anyway, here we go. Troubled Minds coming up. We got more from Kelly. We got Derek coming up, more from James and your calls as well. Don't go anywhere. Here we go. back to Troubled Minds, yada yada, all the places, all the things, troubledminds.org. Come give us a follow, come say hi. We're talking tonight the Middle Earth memory, subterranean gods and vanished kin, of course, and really kind of delving into the larger concept of ancestral memory. And are these ideas of, let's say, elves and orcs and ents and hobbits and whatnot, is it sort of deeper than we ever dreamed, and maybe some of this stuff existed in a primordial human space? That's what's on my mind tonight. A lot of ways to look at this. Again, there's some actual evidence to suggest maybe with again the Homo floresiensis, I think is how you say it, which was the Hobbit fossil they found back in 2003. Hobbit-esque. That's what they're calling it, the Hobbit. But anyway, you get the idea. There's a lot of weird things here that seem to have been sort of built into us, and that ancestral memory that maybe Tolkien was able to channel directly, maybe from reading some old texts and being a scholar as he was. But I don't know. It seems like an intuition played up in this. And yeah, I'd love to hear what you think. Again, click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like this. Kelly in Colorado, welcome back, brother. Thanks for being patient and waiting through the commercial. What else you got, sir? Go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so real quick, before I was going where I was going, I kind of sidetracked with that Sumerian thing. But like, if those stories are true too, right? Like this planet was a different planet before it became Earth, right? A collision happened. The whole story, you know that, where Nibiru ran into it. Well,
Tiamat.
What was on that? What was this? If that's a true story, my question is, what was on that planet before we was here? You know what I mean? All these things that we talk about, people have talked about throughout history. You know what I mean? All the things, the evidence that we do have, right? Like I've showed you, like, you know, and throughout on Discord with all the little people, you know, and then you even have like where you're talking about like someone tried to, you know, rename like those elongated skulls of the ones that they found like in Peru. I posted one on Discord too. It's a really long one of the bigger ones, but you know, the cranial capacity is like 2.5 times brain size than what a human can have, right? And they're also human, but they're human. You know, they're a different type of human? Like, is it a species where are we off of them or what? You know, I mean, science was just kind of like they were DNA tested, but then, you know, that was it. No one, I mean, that should be mainstream, you know, news if something, you know, something like that. You know what I mean? We have a new something out there, right? And all this stuff that these people have found, you know, the one, like I said, was in Russia, right? And all these other ones that they found all over the place. You know, a lot of them, like mermaids, you know, another thing like that. There's another one they've, you know, that's been talked about throughout history. You know, what are we really, you know, that's what I'm talking about. Like, what was this? If this ancient stories again were true, what was on here during that time? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I follow you. And that's why this is, again, so compelling and continues to sort of ratchet up when we find more interesting evidence to suggest that, you know, maybe this, maybe that type of stuff. And look, as I've always said, I'm going to continue to say this until, you know, we get a ton of data, which we do, but we're still so much more buried in the earth that would kind of reveal some of the things and probably, you know, exonerate us from being, you know, fringe weirdos, because I don't think we are. I think we're, you know, sort of dreamers in that particular capacity, kind of like Tolkien was. I think he saw this, he sensed this through that ancestral memory and was like, okay, I can imagine a time or maybe even tune into a time where this was real. I don't know. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And here we are. Don't worry. We're not as weird as we seem, Kelly. Science will validate that some of us eventually.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that, I already say that it has been validated with a lot of those things that I've just shared, you know what I mean? Because that's like evidence. I mean, what else do you want? I mean, you can hold it, touch it, feel it, you can x-ray it, you can CT scan it, right? It's telling you all the evidence. But the weird part about it is, okay, so those bones like that found are probably, it's actually almost miracles to find. Really think about it. Because when you hear about other people, well, how come we haven't found Bigfoot bodies, right? Or for stuff like that. Well, my question is this, right? How many bears are out there in the woods? Not only and like different types of bears, black bears, brown bears. There's thousands of these things out in the forest that run around out there. But how many times do you find bear bones?
Yeah, super rare.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really rare that to find bear bones, you know, a skull or something. But no one finds really any. I mean, yes, somebody might stumble across, just like what they do with like everything else, you know, that the evidence that I've, you know, kind of posted out there. You know, it's there. These people are finding these things, you know, I mean, some of them are like really super unnatural, like, wow, you know, like the ones that are found in Russia. Looks like the one thing has horns, you know, but the horn growing could also be I did a shows when I was doing shows too, like for my thing back in the day. I was on Facebook, but I did shows like that about, you know, skulls of like, I'm talking all kinds of them. We kind of talked about it a long time ago on one of your shows too. That's when we were talking about my book that I have, like, I call it the encyclopedia, but yeah, man, there's all kinds of, there's information and stuff out there that, and I'm pretty sure we don't even have half of it. And like, there's a lot of people that have it in their private collections. You know, these people that have a lot of money, I'm pretty sure they have bodies of something.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting thing to kind of be privy to. That's weird. Sort of maybe there is a Bigfoot skeleton out there that's in somebody's private collection. That'd be sick. That'd be sick. Yeah, who knows? Yeah. Rich people are super creepy and super weird. And so, yeah. Anyway, fire stuff. Appreciate you, brother. If you got anything else, go ahead.
No, man, that's it. I also have another one there I posted where it looked like someone saying it was a Bigfoot toe. If you look at that one, it's got the nail and everything. It's got the description on it, but it's pretty telling too. It's pretty giant size. But yeah, man, I like this type of stuff right here, man, when they talk about this, because, you know, if you go further back about different stories and stuff, you know, this planet it's older than what we think. You know, there's different stuff. And then you have the whole thing of like inner Earth theory. You know, these things could be coming out, you know what I mean, out from underground, you know, things that we don't even know yet. Cave systems, you know, they found different creatures are down there, you know, like insects or whatnot. But, you know, we don't know if these things could be like, I mean, there's videos of like, look like lizard type people or something running around under some of these sewer systems. And they're pretty telling too. But yeah, man, good show tonight.
You're the best. Great call. Always a pleasure. Tell Michelle we said hi, and you have a great night, brother.
All right, man. You too. Have a good one.
Thanks a lot. Kelly in Colorado. You know, we love him. A good friend for a long time. And of course, not only that, brilliant in all the ways. And he's the first guy that called us back. And he's been a good friend ever since, and always lighting our brains up with these ideas. And yeah, look, there's a lot of ways to look at this, as you can tell. And that's why we talked to, again, the shtick here is not to make you believe anything, but to talk to wild ideas about regular people out there and see what people have seen, or maybe some people are eyewitness accounts of things, you know, and, you know, we've had some of that on the show as well. I don't know. You tell me, Kelly, always a fire call. Appreciate you very much. Derek coming up. James, anything real quick? I'm gonna go to Derek. I'm not sure if Derek made it to the car yet. If you're about to do that, 90-second heads up, or welcome to the.
I'm ready whenever you are. Please, James, can you go ahead?
Yeah, James, go ahead.
Yeah. Great call from Kelly. He kind of talked about some of the things that I have like bits and pieces in my mind of people throughout time, you know, cultures having accounts of other cultures, other, you know, these dog-headed people, all these different beings. There's so many reports, like Kelly was talking about, throughout time, of not just one or two, but just, you know, groups of these, whatever these are. And so that's really amazing to me. I was thinking about that, but I didn't have enough to really go on much of. So I'm glad that Kelly has always called in. And yeah, just it's amazing. The cave thing is also really amazing because there seem to be caves, you know, just almost everywhere. And you know, I don't think humans have explored all of them yet, obviously, because, you know, I know they haven't. I've heard accounts of people saying, well, we've explored this part of this cave system, but then there's all that over there that, you know, someone went in there and then we couldn't find them. And so we're
exactly
kind of still mapping that out.
Like, and then we got lost and we were lucky to make it out. So we didn't do that anymore.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. It's just wild. So who knows what is in those places where we haven't been able to get to yet.
Exactly right. And that's the point of this. That's the discussion tonight. We're talking Middle Earth and how deep does it go? Sorry to make you wait, Derek. Derek in Massachusetts.
Unbelievable. Unreal. These people.
So mad. Welcome to the thing. How are you, bro? And welcome to the thing. Go right ahead.
Scrambling. I got a show hand tonight, so I haven't really got a chance to research anything, so I don't have too much. So good night to have a short segment. Yeah, first, just great calls, everybody. And just touching on that, I think it's funny that if like human beings are kind of the honeypot species on the planet, and we just kind of seduced our way into the evolutionary cycle and stuff, and that was kind of we just like batted our eyes, kind of Bugs Bunny in a wig style at the hunter, at the cave, at the Cro-Magnons and everything, and kind of that's the way we survived. We just kind of ingratiated ourselves to these other species, to the giants. How do we survive the giants and stuff? I don't know. We just seduced them, Only fans back in the day, only hominids.
Only hominids. I'm buying that right now. Onlyhominids.com. It's mine. It's my precious. You can have it.
Then just with the cycle aspect of it, or like what was Tolkien like? Where was he getting the information from? I think he was definitely a smart guy, so I think he had knowledge of different cultures and stuff. Like Middle Earth has like Midgard connotations and stuff to it, but also it has like alchemical and spiritual, the idea that like there's higher and lower realms and stuff, and higher and lower entities, and bad ones and good ones and stuff, and archonic stuff, and angels and demons and these type of things potentially like mixing into play, and we're kind of this middle plane here. But then also you were talking about kind of the cycle aspect of it, and it got me thinking like, what if that is kind of what it is? And I like to think about that with like Star Wars, and kind of what if the story of Star Wars is kind of the book of Genesis for the droids, and it's kind of like R2-D2 telling the story, narrating the story through C-3PO, and that's why they're kind of the hero, kind of like at the center of the story and everything about these kind of the previous age of man, these sky gods, these advanced these sky beings, these sky walkers who were just destroying each other, who had all these magical powers and advanced technology, and they possibly created us, and we were their companions, and we learned from them and stuff, and eventually they destroyed themselves and everything, and now we have the Force. Now it's the age of droids, or that kind of stuff. So like I wonder how would that happen? Like what if that's kind of what's happening on Earth, kind of in a way that like we're talking about, oh, there's something going on with these animals. That way animals seem to be getting smarter, as we seem to at the same time be getting more into spirituality and more into kind of the ascension aspect on one token, and then also with the technological telekinesis stuff on the other hand, and also going off world at the same time and stuff. If all these things kind of combine, if the Earth has kind of roles for it, and as we leave and ascend and go to like to be with the Vala or whatever. I'm not a big Lord of the Rings guy. I'm just not well versed in it. If then the age of monkeys or the age of cats or whatever, like Daryl said, will ascend, and that's the reason why crows are so smart, or monkeys are using tools, or dolphins are. You know what I mean? If they all of a sudden ascend and they start telling the stories, well, there was people over in China and they were really good at this. There's people over in America, they were really good at this. There's people in South America and they were really good at this. And some of them were super tall, and some of them are super short, and some of them were great diggers, and some of them were great arrow shooters, and and like some of them are really like up to no good, and those could probably be the ones who were like the zookeepers and that type of stuff. And this like the story of the monkey, like the story of the latent memories that the animals have of us after we leave, is that kind of what the elves were, and that type of thing, and the ages, like the cycles do that way. And then I got one major thread, is the whole reason why I called, but just what you got about all that, those, much all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that. So I've got this. It's jstor.org. If you guys have read this, it's I don't know exactly what it is. It's I do know it's a religious thing. So again, take it for what it's worth. But there's this article, it's linked in the description. Megafauna Memories is what it's called. So some folklorists have hypothesized that the mythical beasts and monsters of legend were actually inspired by shadowy collective memories of these megafauna, which if you look into that and just know anything about the megafauna aspect of, pre-Ice Age or Ice Age type stuff, there's some big, scary monsters that were kind of roaming the joint. The dire wolf is part of that. And I mean, that's
huge dragonfly.
Exactly. Yeah. Like really creepy stuff. And that's, 10, 12, 15,000 years ago isn't that long ago. So, what about another 10, 12, 15,000 years on top? I don't know. It's a crazy thing to consider. All of this might be sort of locked into that again, ancestral memory as part of it. And we're supposed to be scared of monsters because monsters were real. Like that's the, yep. No thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's weird. And it just, got me thinking about like the meme of, the idea of the uncanny valley, like, or the idea of like, being kind of disturbed by seeing a face that's almost human but not quite human, means that somewhere in us there was a time where we were like constantly encountering other things that looked kind of like us in the woods, or things that look kind of like us, but we know to be intrinsically scared of them and stuff. So so like a mix of like we're dealing with at least like 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 6 different types of hominids. Not even like conspiracy. That's just like we know that now. There was a bunch of different types of people running around. like the earth, just people to humans, the way treat people's fruit and stuff. But then also, yeah, I mean, there's like stories of early humans, like just weird, fringy stories of like battling giant birds. There was a big like we had to like domesticate like wolves to ride them. This is like dwarf stories, and because they were like having a battle against the birds, and there were birds swooping them up and everything, and that's kind of potentially where these like giant eagle myths. I don't know. There's all kind of weird stuff, and I love the idea of it, and that's one of my favorite parts about Lovecraft is the ancient aspect of it. Is he's telling things that happened so long ago, but here, like they discover fossils, all these stories of taking trips and expeditions and discovering ancient stuff, and was into my local area and stuff. That's just the vibe I get. Is just, oh, this could be anything under our feet in the middle of suburbia, literally anywhere. We just pave right over it, and who knows how many times that happened, and I just resonate closely with that. But we're running out of time, so I'll get to the main crux I want to say. So probably like 7 years ago, I think it was Mysterious Universe. I had an episode about did Tolkien find like documents about this? Like, is it actually like, is this fact? And he kind of just like translated it and then kind of gave it to us as fiction and tossed his own stuff in there or whatever. And I'm like, where's that from? So I kind of they credit this one thread, so I'm just gonna kind of run through this thread as quick as I can. That's cool. This Twitter thread.
Yeah, go ahead. That's new to me. Love to hear it.
So, and when I was looking for it originally, like the Reddit stuff, I asked the question like, did he actually find text and stuff? And a lot of the ones who really know Tolkien the best kind of said like, not just that's just a writer's trope. He used it as a way to kind of build mystique around the stuff, but it's just kind of what it's like, something to say. But he's considered it to be real. So this is from Robert Kearney. Rob Kearney, 1981 is his ex name. Millions have come to enjoy and love J.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings trilogy, but few know the author privately told many of these works were based on a true history of Europe, one which had been hidden from ordinary people for thousands of years. Although publicly being forced to claim these stories came from his experiences in the Great War, in private, Tolkien said to become enraged when his works were dismissed as, quote, fantasy. Quote, no, it is an analogy and metaphor. This is what I learned from my reading. This is all based on truth. Oh, sorry, this is a different quote. This is an uncredited quote. This is all based on truth, and he would get, quote, angry when people would say that there's only an analogy and metaphor. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the same thing over again. Sorry, I'm trying to navigate it. I'm not familiar with excess as well as I should be. As a young student at Oxford, Tolkien claimed that he discovered a number of old books in the basement of the school's library. They contained an ancient account of life in Europe 6,500 years ago and an epic struggle for ancient civilization that occurred then. Each of these posts have like different weird maps and different just like screenshots of documents that aren't sourced or anything. The books were written in ancient Scandinavian, a language that Tolkien had coincidentally studied, was able to read them. Tolkien reportedly told his friends, C.S. Lewis, there's a whole history we don't even know about. Now, Europe 6,500 years ago was far different than we know it today. The British Isles were connected to the continent and what archaeologists now refer to as Doggerland or Doggerland. If one looks at maps of old Europe, they can easily see how it connects to Lord of the Rings topography. In several private letters to correspondents, Tolkien wrote that, quote, Lord of the Rings was about Europe 6,500 years ago, that the Irish were the hobbits and the elves were the Nords. The similarities between Tolkien's fictional Middle-earth races and ancient ones, such as the Celts, are obvious too. Too obvious to ignore. Hobbit shires bear strong resemblance to early Celtic settlements. Elves were the Nordic Viking races. Wizards like Gandalf were Druid priests. But beyond Tolkien's own private recollections, modern science itself, that's when it gets into the different hominids. We're finding the Homo florensis, the different the dwarfs and tall beings. And what about the main antagonist, Sauron? He is likely based on the historical figure Sargon of Akkad, A-K-K-A-D, Akkad, who himself may have been a composite of many different people. The figure literally invented the concept of time and the rules which our modern world runs on. And then then comparing him to Saturn and a Mesopotamian dictator Sargon. That's what Sargon of Akkad is a Mesopotamian dictator who potentially an amalgamation of different characters like Saturn, but essentially is credited for like inventing the clock and inventing the time. And Saturn is the god of time and the Saturn time matrix, and the idea that time is kind of the prison that we're living in, that type of deal. Before the time of Sargon, men lived more in harmony with himself and nature because psychic abilities and spiritual gifts were abundant. After Sauron opposed his corrupt system, which was time, our minds became imprisoned by the artificial reality it created, and they were lost. So by imposing time on us, it's kind of how we fell from being with nature to being all scrambled and what we are now. Orcs and other such creatures presented in Lord of the Rings were likely other humanoid species such as Neanderthals. Sauron's eye is definitely Saturn in the form of Saturn's cube, used to enslave humans and other species, blinding them from the truth. Unfortunately, unlike the ending of Lord of the Rings, the real world equivalent of Sauron won, and we are now all stuck in the Matrix. And yeah. That's basically it. But there's no evidence. There's no evidence there. It's just there's a theory that he found the stuff, basically. But yeah, that's amazing. What do you think?
Which is again like a very much it's kind of everybody's dream. Every at least a quasi scholar's dream to stumble into some forgotten basement somewhere and finds this tome that's full of all this stuff that's like, wait a minute now, like who wrote this? And then I kind of trace the thread back, and then suddenly you're like, was this real?
It's in a language that I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Only I can translate it.
Yeah, exactly. Even better if you're a linguist like Tolkien was, which is insane. Again, if you guys don't know that, he was a linguist. He knew like 10 languages or something, maybe more than that. And a lot of the languages that he wrote in Lord of the Rings are functional languages. Like he actually created them as he could speak them. Like, I mean, like talk about like just an incredible mind as part of this. But it seemed like he was not just, let's say, a scholar. It seemed like he was, again, special and it tuned into something deeper, something far more primordial, like what we're talking about tonight. And the interesting part, too, real quick on that, is that C.S. Lewis played a massive inspirational aspect to it, because he's literally said, Tolkien said back in the day that, hey, if it wasn't for my friend C.S. Lewis sort of saying you should write some stuff too, I never would have done this. And I mean, think about that crazy aspect. I mean, C.S. Lewis is super famous and his stuff was really good, but also it pales in comparison to the depth of what Tolkien pulled off. It's just crazy how human inspiration can kind of jump from, one lightning bug to another. And then here we are 100 years later talking about the same damn stuff. It's nuts. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. No. Just real quick, the part about like the age of man coming and kind of the age of these old beings being just fading away or intentionally being kind of cast off, or Sauron being imprisoned, and the age of the orcs kind of being stifled, kind of mirrors that's the age of the old ones being pushed away. It's the age of monsters happening. Like I resonate with that closely. I think that's something he potentially picked up on. I think that's like true, whether that's common with the ages or whether that's kind of the Tartarus story or the Titans put in like in the earth and all that kind of stuff. But just the Lord of the Rings characters loosely kind of mirror the Star Trek characters, with the elves and the Vulcans having like more knowledge and kind of like a gravitas to them, and kind of the Klingons and the orcs similarities and stuff. I mean, much more like warlike in the way they're depicted and stuff, and maybe potentially like Q and the Valar and stuff like that. And that was given to Roddenberry via a channeling session. He intuited that via other beings telling them to him. So I wonder if that's just a sci-fi interpretation of the same kind of weird channeled core information. And rather than doing a sci-fi way, Tolkien just interpreted it, received the download as a fantasy and packaged it in fantasy, but kind of talking about the same type of cyclical patterns, tropes, characters, ethereal beings. Yeah. I don't know. That just hit me as you're talking. That's all I got.
No, it's sorry for rambling. No, what are you talking about? Fire as always. We got a minute or two left. James, anything for Derek there?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I do think. I mean, so much sci-fi has that epic quality to it that fantasy stories have. So I could definitely see there being parallels there. Also, a funny thing about stories and how they are found or lost and then found again. Just it's amazing how things can like happen, but then to think of how if they hadn't happened, things would be different. With Stephen King, his first novel, Carrie, he actually threw his manuscript away of it after he wrote some of it because he didn't like it. His wife found it in the garbage can and took it out and said, "You should work on this. You should make this," and it became like his first hit novel. So. And so, yeah, I do. It's amazing how that stuff works, and it makes me wonder: are there other forces behind that? And going back to Tolkien, I mean, who knows? I've had inspiration for things that I have no idea where it came from. I literally have no idea, and I've had scenes and stories where I could see it playing out in my mind. Literally, I was looking into some other place, and watching it happen, which that doesn't happen often with me.
Yeah.
I'm not a visual person, is legally blind. So go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're not inventing it. You're uncovering it. Like you said, you're discovering it. And just to put a button on it, just I believe in all the different types of hominids in history, and then also cryptidly and conspiratorially, and then metaphysically and stuff. And just the common, like these little people are all over the current Fey folk tales and stuff. And it's usually like lumped in with a phenomena. So I think we're dealing with potentially actual creatures, actual like phenomena, the memory of all of them, and then how they all mix together, and potentially real history and cycles and all that. Sorry, brother. Great show. Great stuff.
You're the best. Appreciate you very much. No,
Ramble.
No, you're good. Fire as always. Tolkien once said he didn't invent Middle Earth so much as discover it. And this is what we're doing. We're discovering things. We're discovering the archetypes of old, and bringing them to the forefront of something more important than we may ever have dreamed. Fire call from Derek. Please give him a follow. TroubledMinds.org/friends. Follow the Night Stalker. Please do that. Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. Love to hear your thoughts on this. More from James if he's got it, and more wild and weirdness. Here we go.
Symbols, whispers, and shadows. We've got maps where nobody goes. In the night under hidden glows, guardians of what no one knows. We seek the truth, nothing can hide from me. In cloaked silence we traverse the lines, through ancient scrolls in forgotten times. Voices echo in the halls of lore, guardians of the mysteries evermore. We seek the truth, nothing can hide from me. Where shadows meet in cryptic disguise, our eyes sharp against the everlines. With silver threads we weave the stealth to guard the past, forgotten well. In the realm where the myths collide, with hidden lore our fates are tied. Signals bouncing off the astral plane, invisible codes that can't be tamed. We decode the stars under the midnight veil, a state in circles where midnight hail. In the echoes of time where the legends lay, we tread the path where shadows play. With spectral eyes we discern the truth, unraveling tales from ancient.
Indeed. Thanks for all the amazing calls. You guys are great. I don't know. And we do have a crossover here, right? As Jen pointed out, and Derek pointed out there, seems to be now a Tolkien Roddenberry crossover. I think maybe at this place, there's a lot here as usual, right? And recognize what happens when you sort of build archetypes together. And so, okay, wait, where did this come from? Who was inspired by whom? And you kind of chase that down a little bit, at least conceptually. And you do wonder where some of maybe the shadow inspiration came from in terms of history and some of the things we don't know or can never know because it's been lost in the archives, the annals of history, as they say. So I don't know. I don't really know. Yeah, fire stuff. Please give, again, Derek the Night Stalker a follow, and James and everybody else while you're down there, troubledminds.org/friends. Again, 95% of that stuff is free. If you want to spend some money, go buy some books down there. James has got some books. Herschel's got some books. Matthew in Colorado's got some books. Sonia's got some books to sell. Like I said, go support our friends. That's the whole point of doing this, is making friends and talking about ideas together, and sort of just opening up our mind's eye to what might be possible. That's it. Yep. Okay. I guess. Yeah. Let's see. What if I missed you in the chat? Just say hi. I'll say hi back. Who am I missing? What's up, Kelly? Great call as usual. What's up, Enoch? We got again. Who is that? My stupid streamer mode breaks everything. Rolling fungus. I'll get it. What's up, Michael W. Sweets? Mindy's here. What's up, Dawn? APOC. Matsel. Daryl in New York. Gaston. Hirsch. See what happens when I turn my streamer mode off. Things go beep, 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 beep. That's why it does it. But it also truncates names. So anyway, who did I miss? Bobby Broadway. What's up, Jen? Enoch. I see you guys. I see you guys in the chat. Thanks for lighting it on fire. Puff. We got YY Hiker. Yeah. Just like I said, thanks for being nice to each other. It means a lot to me. And thanks for caring about these ideas. Even if they aren't, like, kind of in your lane, or in the interest of your mind at the moment, whatever, right? Thank you for being part of this and caring and showing up and spending your time and energy with us. Here we go. Troubled Minds coming up right now. Space Orcs coming up. Just kidding. Here we go. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're talking, I'm calling this the Middle Earth Memory. Subterranean gods and vanished kin. And we're basically looking at sort of the epigenetic memory of stories, of tales from the days of yore, as I like to say. And is it possible that there was a time, sort of pre-civilization, go back as far as you want to go in your mind's eye, where maybe orcs and elves and dwarves and hobbits and the Western world of men, or whatever, right? And also, I want to point out too, real quick, that I know there's a sort of a contingent out there that kind of uses these type of tropes as, sort of racist rhetoric. That's not what I'm doing. I want to point out very, very clearly that that's not it. I'm saying in the evolutionary space of people, were there proto peoples that were clearly different? That's it. And I do recognize, like, the people out, the negative actors of the world out there were always trying to make a case about this or that. And I just want to say racism is stupid, and that's that. And that's not what I'm doing here. So just as all the clarifiers, that's totally not what I'm doing. But it started with this article that I read, again, from earth.com. Links will be in the description down below. Did early humans and Neanderthals know they were different species? Perhaps, and here's how. And I think the premise of the article, the headline, is probably not right, because, I mean, obviously and clearly there's something there that's like, well, duh. I mean, we act different, we look different, right? And we're not of the same mind, at least maybe conceptually. Maybe it's not a dumb question. I don't know. I think, as what we're told sort of in the modern zeitgeist of anthropology, is that they were very different, mind's eye and all the rest, and able to, sort of persevere or not, or whatever, made for different times or different places. And one was sort of fading out, and as one was sort of coming in. But we do know that we did commingle, again, through thanks to 23andMe, who's now sold out to China. So if you guys, or whoever's about to buy it, because they just went bankruptcy in the last, couple of weeks now. So yeah, congratulations if you sold out the human DNA to 23andMe. Well, we're bringing the Neanderthals back. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm just being a little stupid and facetious in the moment, but there's a larger context here of J.R.R. Tolkien maybe tuned into something that goes way, way, way back. And these different aspects of, again, the Hobbit, like I said, and this is one that's been, kind of famously covered, but the Homo floresiensis, which is they found a Hobbit, like literally 3 foot 6 inches tall, a humanoid, a family of them, or a group of them, that was found, of course, on, what is this? The Indonesia, the island called Flores. And so that's, of course, part of the name. But it's weird. Anyway, so what do you guys know about this? How deep does it get? And I do enjoy, rather, as Derek slayed it for us, as he usually does, the actual aspect of combining these archetype tropes from Tolkien and the ancient days to the modern ways of Star Trek and Roddenberry. We're mixing mythologies here, and I do think, as usual, there's something to this. But what do you guys think? Phone line is down. If you guys want to be part of the conversation, hop into Discord, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. Put your hand up and come say hi on the stage. It's the live show, listen here thing. But anyway, James, anything on that? Anything what Derek said? I know we gave you just a minute there at the end, but if you got anything, go ahead. If not, I got tons of stuff to get to, of course.
Yeah, no, great call from Derek. The Star Trek thing, and like I said, near the end of that last segment there's so much in fiction. If you think about, if you take away the setting of any sci-fi story, any fantasy story, if you focus less on that, then, and if you focus less and less, in other words, on these different stories, and you take away the details far enough, if you go far enough down that path of zooming out, they will look similar, I think, in a lot of ways, from the character types to the to just so many factors there. I think that really does play, because I mean, in speaking in as far as time goes, time is weird, but science fiction is just a future version of fantasy in a lot of ways. It's just more technology added into everything, and but you still have these characters that are still existing in both those kinds of settings, and still going through things that still going through events that could be very similar from one to the other. So I do love that comparison. I think it does work in a lot of ways, including the different species and their actions. But again, with that, it's tricky because I think that's there are general traits that are similar, but also obviously not down to each and every last individual for any of those groups.
Yeah, it is wild to consider that you could probably make the comparison and spend some time kind of peeling them out and talk about the Romulans and talk about the Klingons and talk about the this and the that. And as usual, right, we're taking conceptual future aspects of alien entities in that capacity, and then we're putting human ideas onto them. And we said this in the past quite a lot regarding aliens and what they might think or believe. It's foolish to sort of frame that, in my opinion, in a human space. I mean, what other framework do we have? But I think that becomes the point of a conversation like we have on Troubled Minds, is because that type of stuff really falls short when you're like, well, aliens would think like us. No, of course they wouldn't. Of course, I mean, I would be shocked, by the way, if they did. And maybe I'm wrong, as usual. Maybe I'm wrong, but also maybe I'm not. And maybe sort of an alien thought truly is an alien thought. And in that space that we're looking at, well, tons of stuff, tons of possibilities as usual. And that's really the point of this. So I ran this through Perplexity as this is super cool. Like AI, as the acceleration process happens, and asked it the question. Okay. I asked it the question of sort of genetic memory and, Tolkien and some of this stuff. And I also want to point this out to you before I read it from Perplexity. If you don't, real quick, if you don't use Perplexity for search, you should. It's incredible. You only get 3 of the deep researches per day on the free model, but I mean, I only use 1 or 2 because we only do 1 show a night. But talking about genetic memory, and so real quick, over to Wikipedia. Genetic memory is this. In psychology, genetic memory is a theorized phenomenon in which certain kinds of memories could be inherited, being present at birth in the absence of any associated sensory experience, and that such memories could be incorporated into the genome over long spans of time. And this has been proven in many ways in terms of, epigenetic switches turning on and off, and, starvation or even anger and fear type of things, hostility being cooked into us as something we're all capable of, but then that kind of comes and goes as the time we live in needs, right? That stuff's been pretty much validated, but the larger concept has not quite been that we, as we take the liberty of discussing the ideas and kind of throwing them out there and wondering why we talk about the same stories over and over again. But it's an interesting thing. I've never seen this. So there's a little, like a exclamation point on this article on Wikipedia on genetic memory from psychology. It says, this article contains weasel words, vague phrasing that often accompanies biased or unverifiable information. Such statements should be clarified or removed. And that was a tag from July 2024. Has anybody ever heard the term weasel words? What the hell is that? Are you serious? Wikipedia, you break my heart. Of all the things you could have been. Anyway, so back to this. You ever heard that term, James? Weasel words?
No, I have not. That's a new one. I've heard, things described in other ways, like, this is pseudoscience or this is not verified, but never heard weasel words. That's a new one.
It sounds almost as if it's a propaganda term cooked up to discredit alternative ideas. I mean, hey, if I'm a conspiracy theorist, why not, right? I've never heard weasel words. Anyway, so back to this. Now, this is super cool. This is from Perplexity, and this is part of the again, genetic memory scientific aspect of this. I'm going to read this to you guys, but like I said, I'd rather hear from you. If you guys want to be part of the conversation, troubledminds.org, click the Discord link, pop in here, put your hand up, and just come say hi and tell me what you think about this. And the whole question really is regarding the Tolkien aspect. J.R.R. Tolkien and Middle Earth, okay? The Middle Earth memory. And so I'll read the question one more time. So could myth be the residue of species we only half remembered? Think in terms of orcs, elves, dwarves, all that, right? Hobbits. If ancient beings once walked beside us, some absorbed through breeding, right? Maybe, for instance, who is it? Neanderthals didn't disappear. They sort of just became us through breeding. So that's what erased would be. So some absorbed, no, that's what absorbed is. Some erased, some twisted into story. Then what survives isn't just bone or data, but archetype, which is what we always talk about. But it's an interesting thing how all these things kind of come together and can be brought into the larger space of sci-fi. As James said very smartly, as Derek brought up, I never even thought of it that way. And of course, that's why we talk to each other, because we're going to tell each other some things that we don't consider together. Anyway, again, put your hand up. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Here's the thing, too, regarding this. So the concept of genetic memory, and this is from the Perplexity bit, the theoretical possibility that certain memories or associations might be inherited genetically provides one potential mechanism for how ancient encounters could persist in cultural consciousness. In psychology, genetic memory refers to a, quote, theorized phenomenon in which certain kinds of memories could be inherited, being present at birth in the absence of any associated sensory experience. Funny, I think that's exactly from the Wikipedia that I just read. While indirect inheritance of specific memories has been scientifically disproven, research suggests more general associations formed by previous generations might pass through the genome. Okay, which means, of course, we don't know the ends of this, and it's probably far spookier than we ever dreamed. A 2013 neuroscientific study demonstrated that mice trained to fear a specific smell pass this trained aversion to their offspring, suggesting some experiences might indeed influence subsequent generations. This raises the intriguing possibility that dramatic encounters between early humans and now extinct species could have created lasting impressions, preserved not just culturally, but potentially even biologically, which is what we're talking about tonight. J.R.R. Tolkien, we're talking about orcs, we're talking about maybe not the treants or the ents, that not that bad. Maybe that doesn't fit into this directly unless you go way, way, way back in the mycelium network, as we've talked about in the past. But, orcs and dwarves and hobbits and humans and elves, maybe, I don't know. I'll give it a maybe. Anyway, so though modern science rejects Lamarckian inheritance of specific memories, there remains scientific evidence for certain genetic predispositions that could support more generalized inherited responses. These may manifest as archetypal images and emotional responses to particular stimuli that persist across generations without conscious awareness of their origins. And as usual, so I'm doing this, the perplexity part of this, to kind of get like a scientific take on a weird troubled minds idea, and it cooks it for like 10 minutes and then spits you this out, which is really good. Has like a ton of links, like I think 30 or 40 or 50 links in this case. However, I drop it in the Discord after the show. So if you want to read this in its entirety, I do recommend, if you haven't joined the Discord yet, please join the Discord. And every night afterward, when the show is over, I'll drop it in the show chat, after show chat, And come read this. It's incredible. Lots of things here. Anything on that, James? And I'll get to some other more deeply into this, but then also back to the Tolkien stuff as well.
No, but I did find a Wikipedia article on weasel words. So, and I shared it in the show, the stage show chat, or the stage chat there. So, and apparently it's things, like some people say, or, that kind of thing, which I don't get because I don't know. I find that to be not necessarily bad technically, but also, but anyway, I just decided I had to look it up to see if that was a thing. And apparently it's been a thing for a while. So if you want to look at that article, it talks about, apparently this goes way back and I was not aware of it.
Which is fascinating to me. We're gonna sideline here for a second and diverge on this for just a moment. So I've got it. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to read a little bit of this. You guys ever heard the term weasel words? In rhetoric, a weasel word or anonymous authority is a word or phrase aimed at creating an impression that something specific and meaningful has been said, when in fact only a vague, ambiguous, or irrelevant claim has been communicated. The terms may be considered informal. Examples include the phrases, some people say, or it is thought, and researchers believe. I'll add, ancient astronaut theorists say yes. Why not, right? As I've always made fun of, by the way. The terms may be considered informal. Examples include phrases, I just read that. So using weasel words may allow one to later deny, aka weasel out of, any specific meaning if the statement is challenged, because the statement was never specific in the first place. Weasel words can be a form of, what is that? Tergiversation? I don't even know what that word is. It may be used in conspiracy theories, advertising, popular science, opinion pieces, and political statements to mislead or disguise a biased view or unsubstantiated claim. All right. Now you know. If you didn't know what a weasel word is, now we know. And now we know what the actual aspect of the claims being made against a conversation like Troubled Minds might actually say specifically. But anyway, you get the idea. That's why, again, I drop all the disclaimers. There you go. Fred says, never have heard it. Yeah, me neither. But that's the point. There's no truth here. So if you're like, damn it, Mike. Yeah, of course. No, I bring a new wild thing. Like I've said in the past too regarding this, I bring a new wild idea almost every night. Okay. And have for years. And if you actually try and say, I believe all the things I've ever said, I'm the nuttest of the nuts. And of course, that's not the case. It's just ideas. It's ideas live forever. And if we're not talking ideas, what are we doing? Anyway, back to this. So back to the perplexity thing. And then we'll, I see MJ, do we go to MJ now or the bottom of the hour? It's about kind of ish. Let me read this. Paleomythology. When fossils become monsters. One of the most compelling explanations for mythological creatures comes from what scholar Adrian Mayer terms the folklore of paleontology. Her groundbreaking work suggests many mythological beings originated from ancient people's encounters with fossil remains of prehistoric creatures. We've talked about this in the past quite a lot. Mayer convincingly demonstrates that many of the giants and monsters of myth did have a basis in fact in the enormous bones of long extinct species that were once abundant in the lands of the Greeks and Romans. Ancient peoples frequently encountered fossilized remains and developed sophisticated concepts to explain this evidence, concepts expressed in mythological narratives. Okay, we'll get back to that in a second. Thanks for the hand up there, MJ. You're welcome to stay as long as you like. I would read the phone number, but it's broken for the time being. The Discord is working, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link and we'll put you on the show, and then I'll get back to this and back to Tolkien as we go. MJ in Virginia, what's up, brother? How are you tonight? Just unmute, and you're on Troubled Minds. What do you know about dwarves and elves and orcs and everything else? Lions and tigers and bears, oh my.
I'm here. My phone's just... I don't know what just happened.
That's
okay.
That's okay.
I don't know too much about them, but we have what was called as Mel's Hole. I think it's in Washington State. There's a hole like that in Nevada. These bottomless pit holes that you have around the world, and they literally cannot get to the bottom of them. I believe the Mel's Hole in Washington, there's history on it, or stuff that was talked about. And one of the things that they had a problem with is people would come and dump their trash down in it, right? They just come up there and dump their trash into the hole. Nothing ever happened. And supposedly somebody put their dead dog down there, and a few days later they saw the dog wandering around, but it wasn't acting right. So they started doing little experiments with the hole. And they also noticed that wildlife wouldn't be in the area of the hole. They'd stay away from it. Birds wouldn't fly over it or anything. And so they started doing stuff. And one of the things they did was drop, I think, a goat or something down in there, and it came up and it was all messed up. Then other experiments, and one of them was where they took a bucket of ice. They figure the longer it goes down, it's going to be warmer because it's towards the core of the Earth. And they brought it back up, and the ice was still the ice. But what they found out was, this is what's been reported, that the ice, they could light the ice and the ice would burn. So you're talking about mythical creatures, and I think they tried to record it down there to put their camera as far as they could go or whatnot, and they didn't get anything, but they recorded some noise down there, type of thing, stuff going on. So it quite possibly, this is where all that is. There's another area down there where all this exists. We don't know because we can't go down in there. The hole's not wide enough for a person. I think they may have tried that and it didn't work. But you have all these things going on like that. So it's quite possible all these things exist. Like somebody said, on the East Coast, Appalachian Mountains, they got all kinds of caves there, but it's volcanic. From 100 billion years ago, it's all volcanic. And then, of course, out where you live, it's still, you can still see the lava on top of the ground. This is where on the East Coast, it's much older in that sense. So they have these caves and whatnot. And like I've always said, we talk of Neanderthals. To me, the Neanderthals are no more, they're the Bigfoots. They just never went extinct. They were built to be on this planet to survive anything. And I'm still going to stick with that, my way of thinking on that. That's exactly what it is, because the Neanderthals, if you test their DNA, it'll be human. We can breed with them. They can breed with us. That's part of what was going on. So you have all these things running around. Let's say a few humans were, like I always say, engineered past the Neanderthals. We're the last ones that, came along. Some of that stuff can still be living in the ground, and we don't know exactly what it looks like. It looks like a fairy or an elf or something like that. We don't know that that's not human.
Yeah, or some proto-human that went underground a long time ago, sort of in the vein of Tartaria or something else. I mean, like a true breakaway civilization, in terms of, again, how deep and how weird you want to get. Atlantis and some of these things that they describe, an ancient civilization that was more technologically adept than we give them credit for, or could ever dream of in an ancient capacity. I mean, look, like me with everything, maybe, right? Maybe. Why not? Have we found evidence of that? No. We found some compelling things to suggest, well, there's other stuff in play here. So what does it actually mean? But yeah, I think maybe you're onto something.
Well, you talk about them being humanoid. That could be a breakaway society, or their intelligence. When you get to like the Neanderthals and all the other things going on, their life is simplified. They don't have cell phones. They don't have the technology. They have all the stuff that's interfering. They have, I got to go find food, get the food, eat it raw, is usually what they would do, is eat it raw. They really didn't cook back then. We're the only ones I think actually cooked after we got, going on it. And we ate raw too, as far as that's concerned, until we discovered fire, however that went. And I think that was sort of planted. So you have all these, they're able to live in their environment easily and freely because they understand the environment. It's a lot more, it's raw compared to ours. Ours is way too cushy. Theirs is raw and it's very basic and it's survival skills, period. That's it. So the technology they have is that, and they're going to, the practicality of how they live, they don't have, we have to make a cement pipe and we're going to do this. No, we're going to go like a beaver and dam up this little place here and hold the water here so we have water. That's it. That was their technology. Because it's basic, we think it's primitive. It's not primitive to them. It makes common sense. And I think people have a hard time dealing with, like Neanderthals or whoever else is out there, creatures, animals that we see every day. They know how to handle their environment and they know what to do with it. So it looks primitive to us. Oh, that's very simple, but that's how they live. They don't have all the other fluff in front of them. So to me, their technology is very clear and practical, down to earth as to how they have to survive and what they figure out to do. It's not Brainiac to do any of that.
Yeah, I'm following you. There's The whole point of this is it's complicated. And where does this come from, and how deep, how far back does it go? If you were a betting man, and I'm not sure you are, I'm not. I live in Vegas, and I'm not, because that's how you go broke. But would you actually bet that there's these entities that have existed back to the days of yore? Like, would you be shocked if they found like a dwarf skeleton or something like that? And we got about a minute left, and you're welcome to stay after the break. But what's your answer to that? If we found a dwarf skeleton, would you be shocked?
I wouldn't be shocked, but I don't think we're going to. It wouldn't surprise me. Like, it's a little baby. But let's say when you examine it, it's a little human. It's a tiny little human. We've had that before. We've had little people. They were perfectly humans. Organs were to the proportion, but they were really tiny. Where did that come from? You see. So that's why I say it's all human, kind of, because we have these throwbacks that come in every once in a while. It comes in from somewhere, and it's in our DNA. So I think all of the humanoids or humans that were ever engineered on a planet, we're all interchangeable. We've just progressed to how we are now, because no matter what your skin color or what country you come from, you can breed. And my feeling is, and look at the Chinese and Japanese, their faces are much different from ours. They have the slanted eye, and how did that get that way? How did, when you go to Philippines, they look different from us. They're still human, but how do they look the way they look? And then we look the way we look. Europeans look the way they look. Where did it all come from?
It's complicated. We got more coming up. Are you going to stay, or are you going to dip? You tell me.
Okay, I'll stay.
Stay right there. Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. More with MJ, more with James, and your calls as well. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
In the shadows of the networks do they hide? Whispered legends unseen they reside. Ghosts in the machine, they move so fast. Guardians of rumors from the forgotten past. In the circuits where the secret lies, they breathe in one, speak in disguise. You're free. Ghost in the machine. Let me be. Ghost in the machine. Can't see, but you're teaching me what it means to be. Surveillance eyes can't pierce the veil they weave. Invisible wisdom in code they believe. In the ether where freedom's not confined, they leave no trace, no shadow left behind. They navigate through the digital stream, living legends in this privacy dream. Ghost in the machine. You're free. Ghost in the machine. Let me be. Ghost in the machine. Can't see, but you're teaching me what it needs to be. Through the hidden ways, in the silence, will pick up their path. Those in the mysteries unleash their wrath. Ghost in the machine, you're free. Ghost in the machine, let me be. Ghost in the machine, can't see, but you're teaching me what it means to be. In the jagged cold they find their might, guardians of a world forever in twilight. In Krishna's warriors they silently strive, protect the truth, keep privacy alive. The silent echoes they haunt the trails, hideaway forests where secrets prevail. Re shadows grace they dance unseen, defenders of the unseen, digital green. Ghosts in the machine, you're free. Ghosts in the machine, let me be. You're teaching me what it means to be. In the silence speak volumes loud. Guardians of freedom's cloak and mitchell shroud.
All right. For all the doubters, is AI music good? There's some good ones. You got to admit, there's some good ones. What's up? Hope you guys are well tonight. Shout out RJ, the real Jason Barker. Sorry, RB. Wait, JB. My goodness. That's what happens when it gets late and I haven't eaten. It's weird. This is a weird thing. And I think, again, per usual, there's a lot of themes that we recur here on the show because I think it's important to notice how wide and varied they are. And that's what we're on again about tonight. If I missed you in the chat, just say hi. I'll try and say hi as we go. And you guys are the best. What's up? Stephen England is here. Herschel, Matt Sal. What's up? Kelly. I see you guys. Here we go. Troubled Minds coming up right about now. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, D Live, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Shout out Jack and Jill on the Underground Media Network. Tonight we're talking the Middle Earth memory. Subterranean gods and vanished kin. Is it possible that orcs, elves, dwarves, and all the things from the days of yore, old fiction, has some basis in reality? And we've seen some of it, the Homo floresiensis. I believe that's how you say it again. I butcher it every time. But it's weird. How deep does it go? And why are we still telling the same tales that actually echo into, shout out Derek and James, the Gene Roddenberry era of Star Trek? Orcs in space. Shout out Bobby Broadway. Love to hear your thoughts. Click the Discord link at Troubled Minds. We'll put you on the show as easy as that. Let's go to back to MJ. Thanks for being patient, my man. You're on Troubled Minds. How are you, sir? And go ahead. Take it anywhere you like, as you know.
Okay. One thing I was thinking about, when you go to Africa, some of the people are so black there that they have a blue tint to their skin. They're blue-black. That's how black they are. That's how dark the skin is. How did that happen? Because most of them aren't like that. The Vikings, they're big, tall blondes. How did they get that way? You go to Mexico, there's very short people there. Some of these people are short. How did they get that way? Along the lines, you have taller Mexicans or, Europeans, all these things going on. Where did their DNA stop their height? And on my height, being 6 foot, why did I stop at 6 foot? Why do the Vikings are 6'7"? Why are you the height you are? Why is your digestive system not able to handle garlic and mine can? You see what I'm saying? There's so many variances and they're subtle, and you medically can say, well, your system, why is that? Why do we have health problems and some people don't? It's in the DNA, but it's in through past breeding of humans and interchanging breeding for all of us. So we have all these things going on. Medically, we have, some people are just genetically right. They're just perfect. They're specimens of humans. Some of us aren't. How does all this happen? You sit around and think about the elves and leprechauns and all these little things out there. And did they come in and breed with us? And then disappear back into their holes. Like I said, Mel's hole, it's a bottomless pit. And when they got down there, they recorded, they could hear sounds down there. They could hear something going on. And maybe that's how they come in and out, or maybe they're vents, so they can have air also. And they just live down there instead of up here.
Yeah, which would be the ultimate mix of which goes back to the biblical angels and all the rest of that stuff, where they came down and mated with the daughters of men and all the stuff, right? It's so wild that a lot of these tales are, again, circular. And that's why it's incredibly important to me to point these things out and ask that question, why? Why is it? Why is it that these things, when we hear them, as we're folklorists now, we're mythology enthusiasts and all the rest of this, we're weirdos by dark of night as we talk about these ideas. But how come these sort of circular aspects of these tales from the days of yore don't shock us? Because we've heard them all again and again and again and again. And everybody's told them the world over, as we described, in different regions, different time frames. And it's like the same damn thing is over and over again. And much of it is difficult to reconcile, right? Well, science is like, no, hell no, it's just some stories, Mike. That's cool. Like, I get that. But also, how come everybody told the same damn stories? It seems strange to me, almost as if there's a missing connection to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's like Montauk. Jen and James were talking about Montauk and Amityville and all these other things, and they have several levels into the ground. There's Dulce, New Mexico, same thing there, supposedly. And then the Indians report these strange creatures. Let's put it this way. Maybe the military or the scientists have locked into what's down there, and they're taking those creatures or beings and doing DNA experiments to see what they can get out of it. They know that that's there. They know about, you guys call him Bigfoot. We'll call him Bigfoot. They know about Bigfoot, you see. One thing I thought about, in abductions, the aliens come down and they want your DNA, and they, experiment with your DNA with them and back and forth. And they also say, well, you always see a UFO around the sighting of a Bigfoot, like they put him down there, which I don't think they did. What I think's happening with that is they're still experimenting DNA with Bigfoot. I thought about that and thought, why would they be around if it's Bigfoot's Neanderthal? They don't have to. So are they still experimenting or watching their projects with Bigfoot?
Yeah. And so some theoretical questions here too, by the way. If you think that, let's say, the United States government captured a Bigfoot, do you think we'd know about it? Or
oh God, no.
Exactly. Oh God, no. And not only that. Again, conceptual thinking here. What about sort of a hybrid between people and like a chimpanzee, as I've talked about in the past? Like the elephant in the room is Dolly the sheep is fine. We can clone that. Okay, we can put the two-headed dog in Russia. We can do that where it survives, right? That type of stuff, like weird, wild science we know is real. But the elephant in the room, as I said in the past, is the humanzee. How come there is no actual hybrid person-chimp? Because that would be the most obvious aspect of science. Is it literally so taboo that nobody's tried it? Of course, that's the PR version of it. But I'm willing to guess, as you described, and the reason I'm bringing it up like this, is you're like, well, what are they doing in some deep underground lab? And for sure, there's been somebody that were like, well, what if we mix ourselves with a chimpanzee DNA and recreate one and grow it from birth and clone it or whatever? I mean, you think that hasn't happened? Of course. And back to the Bigfoot, of course they would be trying that stuff. Of course they would. And so would they tell us? No, because we'd be disturbed. We'd be pissed off. You think the religious communities of the world would stand for that? I mean, it's look, I'm not the one to throw around terms like blasphemy, but it feels like that, right? Kind of stretches into that space of, well, should we really be doing this? It's very Jurassic Park stuff. But anyway, sorry, I digress. Go ahead, sir. What else you got?
Well, you mentioned religions. What if some of the religions are they have, like let's say the Pope, they know about these things, but they're going to keep spreading the religion to keep your eyes over here. Don't look over there. You see, I have a problem with the Pope. Big one. And you think about that. Somebody knows about this. Somebody's doing something with it, and I'll guarantee you're doing it. And people go missing 411 in the forest someplace. Never found again. Where did they go? Are they being picked up for an experiment down below in one of these places to take their DNA and mix it with like chimpanzee or, a snake or whatever they're doing? Because they figured these things out, how they can link it all together to see what the creation is. It's not that they want it to live, but can we do it? And how does that come out? And I think it becomes, it's like a sickness that you sort of forget your humanity. And it becomes a sickness. And can we do this? Okay, you've done it. Why do we have to keep doing it? And you're right about the chimpanzees. Nothing's ever been done with them. And we're supposed to be closest to them. But maybe there's something in them that won't mix with our DNA somehow. And it just simply doesn't work. Maybe they're a total different species completely from us. But there's no meshing. They can't put it together.
Yeah. And this is, again, goes all the way back. I got a thing of Anubis here, which if you guys haven't tried it, by the way, try the new GPT image generator. It's incredible. So Anubis wears ritual, but behind the golden linen is system older than writing, a mind older than death. And look at this image of Anubis as a photorealistic thing. It's a little bit terrifying. It is a hybrid, a dog-human hybrid, but also, where are the humanzees, MJ? Where are they? Where's the Bigfoots? What are they hiding from us?
Well, like I said before, I think the Bigfoots are Neanderthals, and I think they've lived on the planet for so long, they have their own thing. They have their own little world. They know the route. They stay out of the way. You know, if they can go down underground real quick, they can do that. Let's say they've developed to the point where they can just, let's say, this is an example. All right, here's an example. I was working at a bar off and on for 20 years in Phoenix. And I would get very quiet, very relaxed. I'd lean up. There was another like dollar store in the parking lot, and I was leaning up the back of it, and watching the front parking lot when just kind of in an area I can see everything. And I'm leaning up against the wall. It's in the summertime. It's 1:10 at 1:30 in the morning. And it's July. And I'm just sinking back on the wall. And I'm just becoming extremely relaxed, almost going into a meditation state, just very relaxed. The owner comes out the front door, screaming all over the place. She ran around the corner looking for me. I'm standing right there. She couldn't see me. She could not see me. And I was super just blended into the wall, just being very quiet, just observing, but like I was, not there, but I am there. I can see you, but my energy just wasn't being projected out loudly so you could see me. I was super quiet, holding it in, just relaxing. Now, these beings, these Bigfoots have been around for, 1 billion years? Maybe at some point they wanted to get quiet and disappear, and they developed the ability to, just disappear, invisible. They can keep going. They have a cloaking thing in their body. They think about it, and their body's cloaked. Or what it is, they don't throw out the energy for us to see them because we can't detect it if we can't feel that energy. They could have developed this over millions of years, and it's conceivable. Your brain tells you like, yeah, okay, this is what I'm doing now. And you can literally work your brain into your body, because they're two separate things. You can work your brain into your body and become one with that and just sort of sink away or disappear. Maybe they've done this completely where they could be right in front of you, but because they're able to do that, you see, they've disappeared, but they're standing right there.
Yeah, well said, all that. And how much of that, again, disappeared, but standing right there means that there's some hidden aspect to this. I've long maintained, and I'll keep saying it from time to time because it's important that we don't forget this. Where are the humanzees, MJ? Where are the hybrid animal humans, which basically go back to Bastet and Anubis and you name it, Horus, the Hawkhead, you name it. There's all of these things that go back to ancient history where they were thinking about these entities, these hybrid entities in direct mythological terms, we're told. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Where's the humanzee? We're supposed to believe it's never been created because it's just beyond the pale. And people would be so mad, the world would riot. I'll bet you they're out there, bro. I'll bet you they're out
Well,
there.
you know what? You study apes and chimpanzees and gorillas up in the mist and all this stuff. And maybe they're a cross between leprechauns and Bigfoot.
Now we're
Who
cooking.
knows?
Now we're cooking. Absolutely. Why not, right? But that becomes that okay, and that's at the it's I know we're both laughing and it seems ridiculous to say, but that's at the heart of this, is that if this type of stuff was ever sort of discovered, it would be buried so deeply that this type of stuff would we'd be like, well, okay, well, I mean, it's just it's a whispered myth from some oral folklore, some the old forgotten ways or something. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. This stuff is crazy. And so what don't we know becomes really the question. And I think it's naive to suggest we've never tried to merge some sort of gorilla and human as a super soldier, or some sort of chimpanzee and human as a super soldier. Because I mean, they're Coco the gorilla with all the sign language and the Jane Goodall stuff. It's incredible. So they've proven they understand complex concepts and can communicate with us. But you get the point, is that, so we're expected to believe that the geneticists have never been like, well, let's try and clone this and make it more human. And by the way, just a couple points on this is we got Dolly the sheep, But then we got these pig human hybrid organs that are being created in labs to be implanted into humans that need kidneys or whatever. You know what I mean? Right. So once again, and you're telling me, you need to say the official human story here is the world over that nobody's tried to mix a chimp and a person. Stop it. Stop it.
I just, when you say that, the impression I get is somehow it didn't work. It's like the body melts down on the table, turns to liquid and disappears. For some reason, it's not working. There's a gene or a blocker, and it could be that they're already there with us. They're, let's say, in their own species, and they're maybe 1 million years behind us because they're starting to hunt with sticks to get fish now. Certain things are happening, and they've done experiments where they have these isolated monkeys on one island, and they're learning to do these things, but they don't interact with other monkeys elsewhere, and then the other monkeys elsewhere are starting to do the same thing. So maybe that's a whole new animal-human type species that comes along later after us, and it's not there, they can't interact with it, or they're told not to. Maybe someone, ETs don't do that. It's a separate experiment going on, and they're basically aren't allowed to do that experiment with humans.
Yeah, I do wonder, and you made a lot of fantastic points through the conversation here. But my mind goes back to the one where maybe it didn't work. Maybe there was some sort of a schism in the sense of, or it worked too well, right? With the chimpanzee and the human hybrid, that it was too terrifying that it was shelved entirely. Or like I said, maybe it didn't. Maybe it's impossible to work because we're too close. I mean, clearly trying to make a human banana hybrid would be ridiculous. However, we're not talking bananas, we're talking chimps, and they're very close. And again, the chimp is smarter than the gorilla, but the gorilla is doing sign language. So it's crazy, man. This whole thing is insane. And that's why, like I said, to talk about them sort of outside of scientific and only in the conceptual frameworks of what if and maybes, you see that there's some things here. There's some things here that they're in some capacity, they're not telling us, and why it's important to talk about it together. Firestar Brother, we're about to wind down. You got a final thought here? Appreciate you staying past the break, and as always, glad to have you here.
Well, you mentioned the chimpanzees. Maybe they were just too intelligent and too violent. Maybe it just would have been a takeover of this species kills out that species, because monkeys, chimpanzees, gorillas are much stronger than us. Chimpanzees are stronger than us. And just say they mixed in that human DNA and it sparked something, and they're still living out in the woods, eating bananas and beating, doing stuff. They could, and they don't need a cell phone. They're not going to use a computer. And if they attack in numbers, like let's say, what was that movie they put out with the chimpanzees? They were testing them and could start talking and whatnot. I forgot what that
Planet of the Apes
movie is. Yes, Planet of the Apes. Let's say it turned out like that, and let's say that's what it was going to be. And they did this experiment, and wow, because chimpanzees are stronger than you. They can knock the crap out of you.
Yeah, kill you.
One chimpanzee
by accident. Yeah, they're like what? It's like 2.5 or 3 times stronger than a person, and they could break your arm on accident. Right. It's crazy. It's crazy how strong they are. Yeah.
And so they sit there and they've tried this experiment. It's like, we can't go there. We'd get wiped out.
Planet of the Apes coming to a reality near you. Maybe that's it. Maybe they do have. Maybe they've done it. And these there's an underground lab that's so big that they have an entire population of these things just waiting to escape. That's a sci-fi movie for the future. Horrific. MJ, you're the best. Thanks for staying to play with us. Thanks for bringing the fire as always, and always a pleasure, my man.
All right, thanks a lot.
Have a great night. You know me, love him. MJ, a good friend for a long time. MJ in Virginia. And this is why we do this, to talk to, again, very smart people with incredible ideas, and to, again, disengage from the framework of the official narrative and wonder what lies on the fringe. Not the cringe FM, what lies on the fringe itself. It's different. It's a different thing. The term is great, but I digress. There's a lot of things happening here, and a lot of moving pieces, and recognize that there's not just, let's say, the capacity for, do you think they're breeding orcs or something? You know what I mean? And also, too, I want to point out that regarding the term orcs from Middle Earth, look what they did on sort of the Ukraine propaganda. You remember that? And look, I don't have a dog in this fight. I think all war is horrific, and I think we should have actually evolved past this type of stuff, sort of regional wars and, killing people for land and whatnot. I mean, there's a lot of land in the world that nobody lives in, by the way. There's a lot of that. So why are we killing people over, the choice land? It's crazy to me. Like, we should have evolved way past that. But recognize what happened. This was like a year and a half ago. They were calling the Ukraine propaganda, at least American style propaganda, they were calling the Russian soldiers orcs. Remember that? As a sort of dehumanization effort to, kill as many of them as possible. And look, I know it's a tactic. I know it's been a thing forever, dehumanizing the enemy. And then when we kill them, we don't feel bad because they're monsters. They're directly monsters. They are specifically, no two ways about it, monsters, and monsters should die a horrible, fiery death, right? But you see what's happening. But not just there, it's modern politics in all the ways, okay? In my opinion, look, maybe I'm wrong, but I sense it, I pick up on it, and any kind of division rhetoric has become basically my specialty. When you say, well, this, or well, that, or these type of people, or those type of people, I'm like, okay, so take that to the end of it, conceptually, and what would you want done to those type of people? And if you say, die in a grease fire, then newsflash, you're the monster. Newsflash, you've been propagandized to become the monster, to dehumanize and root for the demise of people. Anyway, that's it. What's up? Shout out to Jason Barker, Knights of the Storm. I see you guys, Puff. Thanks for the great conversation over in the chat as well. James, anything on that? There's a lot we covered there. Fire stuff from MJ as usual. We got so many smart friends that, like I said, our cup runneth over. So thank you for all the great calls tonight and all the great ideas. But think about this stuff. And do we have a human Z, or have we tried to create an orc in a lab, like an actual orc, like dare you call it a subhuman? And I say that because there's a funny thing. Real quick, James, give me 30 seconds. I was watching Ghostbusters, the original in 1984, a couple days ago with Mrs. Strange. We were just kicking it, put it on, like laughing and watching the great old stuff. And, there is no Dana, only Zool. Remember that scene? And so Bill Murray comes into her apartment and she's possessed and whatnot. And she's trying to get freaky with him because she expects him to be the gatekeeper, or no, the keymaster. And so she's like, take me, subhuman. It was like, that's an interesting term. Anyway, it's stuck in my head. And so it's manifesting in the conversation tonight, but wild scene, funny, the language they picked as part of it. Cause of course she was inhabited by a demigod or, something, a chaotic, evil demigod. Anyway, go ahead, James. So crazy.
Yeah, no, great call from MJ, and yeah, that movie. I feel like you could watch that movie like once a week or once a month or whatever, and every time it would still be just as good. I don't know, maybe I'm biased, but it's funny. MJ did bring up something that Jen and I talked about on Saturday. These places where there's all these things that are like well known that are connected to by land, by where they're at. We were talking about Long Island in New York, and Jen pointed this out because I didn't know this because I'm terrible with maps. The Amityville Horror House is less than 85 miles away from the Montauk base. And it brought up a question in that show, and then you're kind of covering it now too. Which came first? Anomalous energy fields, anomalous, beings, or however you want to call that, different types of creatures, or interest in them. And, there are some of these places that are turned into power spots as far as in the military or political systems. Are they picked because of that weirdness that's there that people want to exploit and tap into over time? And it's just, we looked into that whole island, and there's just all other kinds of weirdness there too. So, and the point I made in that show was that's one place, that's one location, general location. It made me wonder how many other, if we were to look at all of the former, let's say former, because I don't want to be looking into current, but former military bases that are not active anymore, that have been decommissioned or whatever. If we were to look at go case to case, place to location to location, how much high strangeness, how much anything unusual would we find all centered around that location?
Yeah, well said. Jen points out too, it's in the same county. These places are in the same county. It's so nuts that I don't know, like a lot of ways to look at this. And like I said, you pick and choose what you want to believe is part of it. But like I said, when there's so much information. In the old days, like 1983 or whatever, you pick up a newspaper and, you only had so much information to go on. There was no internet, and, you kind of knew what you do education wise and what you could read and kind of pick up on and do all this stuff. But now suddenly a lot of these data points are becoming, more ubiquitous, because not just we're into the weird stuff, but everybody else is kind of like, you can pull up a Google Maps and you can look at some of the actual location of these things close to each other and go, well, that's an odd thing, right? Like in the old days, you heard the two things and maybe knew the two things, but now you can kind of do, again, as I always say, that granular level of research and kind of pour into what maybe we're missing. And that's it. That's the way of this. And that's why it's important to kind of talk about these ideas together. Because maybe, look, I'm definitely missing stuff. Maybe you're missing stuff. But when we get together and talk about it, maybe, just maybe, there's some other ideas here that connect that make a little bit more sense than the official narrative as we've been told. What else, James? Go ahead.
Yeah, and just real quick on that, even people that maybe aren't into the stuff the way we are, they've still heard, I'm sure, a lot of people have heard of the whole Amityville Horror House and the movies that are based off of that. And, and I'd heard of Montauk, and I'd heard of the Amityville Horror House. I had no idea they were in the same location. And so, different focus, different attention paid to different things. I wonder how many people out there also were not even aware that those two were in the same county. As Jen pointed out, she was able to look at the maps and point that out, which is amazing. So, yeah, that show actually is coming out after this show tonight. I'll be putting it out there. So, but yeah, thank you for letting me be here and talk about all these things with you as always.
You're the best. Thanks for being here and being the glue of the show. Like I said, sometimes it's really difficult to talk about stuff by yourself for a minute without the wingman and the additional people and all of the amazing ideas as part of this. And so thank you for doing that and being like, hey, I like this one, Mike. Can I pop in here? It does help me a lot, and I appreciate you very much. Please, please, please go help James. You know him, you love him. James Salcido. Salcido Paranormal is the name of the show. Again, shout out Jen, the co-host there on the weekends. And Please go help. Please go help these amazing people that are doing amazing work. And it's links in the description. Search it yourself, SALSIDO space paranormal, just like that. You'll find the show, which he's going to release that one we talked about, the Montauk and some of the other interesting things that come out of that conversation. But troubledminds.org/friends, scroll down a little bit. It says James. Just follow James here, click it, and go check out his podcast. Please listen to that. And the best part, one of the best parts, is because he's got a ton of information. He's done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes, but they're bite-sized. They're perfect for a commute, like a 20-minute sort of commute sort of thing. So yeah, there's so much information there. What, 780? Are you on 800 yet, James? Jesus, you're
not quite. 756 as of now. Tonight will be 757.
Over 750 episodes, bite-sized pieces, and all manner of paranormal stuff. So please help our friends. That's the best. Getting Salcido-y with it. Absolutely. What's up, Bobby Broadway? A couple quick shots before we go. Airy the Cat, I see you there, buddy. And who else? Somebody new over on... Who is this over on Rumble? And then we'll wrap this up. Shout out Rumble fam. Who is this person? How you doing? Like I said, if you don't chat, like I know there's a lot of people that kind of listen and don't really chat or kind of catch us after we're live or whatever. But it's nice to have somebody pop in, a name you haven't seen, and say hi. Who is it? Who is that person? Who is that person? I'll get in a second. I'm reading the chat. There's a lot of great chat happening over in all the places. But yeah, that's what's on my mind tonight. All of these things. And like I said, don't forget what it looks like if you try and make a dog man named Anubis. And they carved this in stone. But now we can create this in terms of, well, photorealistic 4K. It's crazy. I'll drop this link in the description as well. Do check out that new GPT actual art that comes out of it, because this is the quality you're getting. This is like Jen said, looks like a Doberman, right? It looks like apparently Set is a Doberman. Yeah. Or no, not Set, Anubis. Anubis is a Doberman, at least in this conceptual art piece. What's up? Who did I miss? What's up? I'm trying to find the name here. If you want to help Troubled Minds, you know what to do. Help our friends. troubledminds.org/friends. Please, please, please. Like I said, if you haven't followed these fine folks, you're doing it wrong. Please, please, please help. That's the whole point. And you're hurting my feelings, because this is not about me. This is about us. like I said, I could do this for 20 minutes or 45 minutes and not take any calls and be, more crisply perfect and more perfectly edited. But that's not what this has ever been about. This has been about being humans and talking to humans about incredible things. That's it. Anarchist Co. What's up over there on Rumble? That's the name I was looking for. He said, oh crap, you watch this show too? Cool. I'm not sure. We're talking to JB, Jason Barker. Anyway, you guys are the best. Thanks for being cool and chill and hanging out and caring about these ideas. Like I said, even though this may be weasel words, this may be primitive thinking, this may be entirely wrong. You see how propaganda works? You decide, as usual. Don't believe anything I say. Look into this stuff yourself and wonder why we talk in these cycles continually and constantly, and just bring them back over and over and over again. It's wild, it's weird, and I think it's incredibly important because we haven't figured it out yet. Yeah. What's up? If I missed anybody, sorry about that. I'll circle back around, and thanks for showing up and being cool and chill with us. If you want to help Troubled Minds directly, you know what to do. Just help our friends, as I said. If you want to help us directly, spread the word. Let people know a conversation is happening where we're not going to talk about politics. We're not going to tell you who to vote for. We're not going to be that goofball aspect of everything else that everybody else wants to do because we've been told to do it. The whole point of this is we're counterculture to the nth degree. Think in terms of concepts and ideas and recognize that we're encouraged not to do so. I think, as usual, that's incredibly important. If you want to help us directly, troubledminds.org, click the support link. The best way is on Spreaker. It's only $5 a month. If you want to help that's like 60 cents a show. And it's very, very little money. They don't take any fees whatsoever. troubledminds.org/support. I would appreciate that very much. There are costs that go into the show, the phone line, and all these other things. The AI systems that I'm using to make these shows. Anyway, as we finish, it goes kind of like this, exactly like this. I don't know. Let's get somebody from over from the Rumble chat. I don't give the Rumble chat enough love. So much great stuff is going on over there. This one's for Puff. What's up, Puff? Shout out, buddy. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night. God willing, we'll see you on Tuesday night. You guys have a fantastic one. Remember, tomorrow's not yours until it is. So let's be grateful for the moment we have and what might come next. Michael Strange is out, and you guys have a fantastic night.